The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
What's up, everybody? This is the Dirty Daddy, Chris Dickinson here, and you are listening to Keepin It Strong Style.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review nights 1 and 2 of the New Year's Golden Series and cover all the latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts and columns over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, we consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWworld.com, with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and shared playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit njpwext.us today for details. Young boy, how you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. It's cold outside. I mean, it's unbearably cold. It's like 50 degrees.
Yeah, man. For us Floridians, man, it gets, below 70, man, and it starts getting cold.
Yeah, it's not a game. I'm not playing. Thank God I got this, this New Japan Pro Wrestling, Pro Wrestling Tees, fucking hoodie on, because otherwise I would die.
Yeah, man. It was yesterday. It was like in the 30s, man. So.
Yeah, I'm not playing about this. Someone needs to fix this. We live in Florida. I don't live in, Virginia or, New Jersey or Indiana. It's supposed to be the Sunshine State. It's not cool.
Yeah, man. Raining and cold today. Was not feeling it.
Speaking of which, you got the black New Japan hoodie from Pro Wrestling Tees, right?
Yes.
How did the quality of that hold up? Because this gray hoodie, has all sorts of holes in it. It's not the greatest quality.
The black one I have has been holding up pretty good.
Damn, I should have got that one. Trying to be different.
I'm looking at getting the 50th anniversary one that they have up now in the Tokon shop.
I was gonna say, don't buy it from Pro Wrestling Tees, bro. Mess around, get your whole life stolen, and they won't even tell you about it for 4 months, except for they send you something in the mail.
Right, send a gimmick in the mail. Oh, by the way, your your information might have been stolen.
We served our fiduciary responsibility. We sent you a letter in the mail. We sent you a telegram, sir, to let you know that your identity was stolen. Lay off.
I guess we can't complain too much because currently our shirts are up on there. So go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Make sure you buy us a shirt for Pro Wrestling Tees.
Risk your identity and support Social Suplex.
Maybe we should put our shirts on some other platforms. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that, but yeah, we'll look into that. Speaking of supporting, one thing I want to do, normally do it at the end of the show, but I want to do it up front in the beginning while we have everybody's attention. Just really plug the Social Suplex Podcast Network. I know we got a ton of new listeners that came in for Wrestle Kingdom season. Probably some new listeners checking this podcast out for the first time. If you didn't know, Keeping It Strong Style, we are part of Social Suplex Podcast Network, socialsuplex.com. We have a ton of other great shows on the network feed. So if you subscribe to the network, you'll get our show along with great shows like One Nation Radio, hosted by our friends Rich Latta and James Boyd. They cover everything. WWE, New Japan, AEW, Stardom. That's kind of their highlight there. Stardom feature at the end of their show there. And they kind of cover all the major news items, kind of our version of, Wrestling Observer Radio that kind of covers everything. We have All Things Elite, hosted by Floyd and Austin. That's your go-to AEW podcast for the week-to-week reviews and recaps on Dynamite and Rampage, everything going on in the world of AEW. We have the AEW Match Guide podcast hosted by Sir Sam in Australia. And Sir Sam, he worked on this AEW Match Guide project where he ranked, I think it was like the top 100 matches in AEW history. So each week they pick one of the matches. He has a different guest on every week, and they review those matches. We have the Grave Consequences podcast hosted by Caleb and Maserati. They're covering all things Lucha Underground. They've gotten through the first 2 seasons. They're getting ready to start reviewing season 3 of that show. So if you're a big Lucha Underground fan, you can check that out. We have the Great Match Generator with Danny, and he's got a project where he's finding all these great matches and is going back and reviewing them. So a lot of great stuff there. So all that is on the network feed, so you can subscribe and get some other great wrestling content.
You forgot some of the other shows that we have on this network. There's the SMC podcast. There's the Wrestling Wash with Caleb. 8-bit Suplex. Wilfred Watches. Let's not forget that show. It's really good.
Well, I mean, all that is in the archives on the network. So if you subscribe,
that's true.
You can go back. Wilfred.
Grown men watch this shit.
Yeah, grown men. They covered a lot of independent stuff. There's some interviews with guys like Darby in the archive from some shows that we had. Ricky and Clive wrestling show. I mean, they've been on hiatus for a while, but one of the
coming back.
Key cornerstones of the network. All the quiz time stuff, and that was a great show. Hoping they do come back soon.
Yeah, but enough about that shit. Let's talk about New Japan.
So I mean, the top thing that we got to talk about is COVID striking again. So New Japan,
it never stops striking. It's like a swarm. It's just it's always striking. Even before we got in the air, I was like, I've got a sore throat. I don't know if it's COVID or not. You don't know. It's out there.
Yeah, it's just a never-ending Kojima chops in the corner. just keeps coming.
Yeah.
So they canceled the remainder of their live events for January due to COVID-19 medical protocols. The company announced on their website due to wrestlers presenting elevated temperatures or being in close contact with the same, the company will cancel the remainder of their tour this month and will resume with live touring on February 6th in Chiba. All ticket holders for these events will be refunded. So dates affected by these cancellations include the January 25th show in Fukushima, January 29th at Korakuen Hall, and January 30th in Ibaraki. The January 28th show that was scheduled to take place in Aichi has been postponed to April 18th, and tickets for the January 28th show will be valid for the April 18th show. And these cancellations kind of started with earlier on the tour when 6 wrestlers had to miss 3 consecutive shows on the tour due to elevated temperatures. Toru Yano, Hanma, Minoru Suzuki, Taichi, Taka Michinoku, and Satoshi Kojima were among those who were pulled from shows. And so we got some matchup changes on the 2 shows.
All the olds.
Yes, all the olds went down.
Olds down bad. Olds in the mud, Dan Coffin.
So they were pulled from those shows, and the last New Japan show was held January 22nd. It was a house show, not aired in Gunma.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but again, New Japan's a company that has taken, ever since COVID, and the pandemic started, they've taken a lot of, measures to ensure the safety of the performers and the staff and all the, fans that attend their shows. And they've got, strict protocols in place, and you can't really, fault them for any of that. So I think it's a good thing what they're doing, especially if there are people that are, showing signs. I mean, at this point, I guess it's better to err on the side of caution. It is, somewhat unfortunate though, because business has been down. Obviously, this whole Golden Series tour was designed and intended to be something to, sell as many tickets as possible. From the business perspective, canceling these shows, it's not a good thing. Obviously, live touring business, and that's where most of their revenue comes from. And I think they're doing the best they can to kind of recoup those losses. And I mean, we gave them a lot of grief last year about how many consecutive shows they were doing in Cork and Hall to kind of facilitate the same thing. But in this case, they were touring. They did have the one Cork and Hall show, but they also had shows, like you said, in Fukushima and Aichi and all over the place. And, unfortunately, those are going to get canceled, so. But the one positive side of it for us is we don't have to cover it.
Wow.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's like a nice little, reprieve.
Yeah, and another positive note is that, none of the big matchups are having to be canceled or rescheduled. The Okada Naito match, the junior title match with Wato and Despy, all the, Three Evil title programs, none of the title matches and big feuds are being canceled.
Well, something, Jeremy. Well, something, Jeremy. No, I shouldn't be doing Hulk Hogan impressions on this podcast. It's kind of offensive. It's fucked up. But in all seriousness, last year there was and even continuing into this year, there's fans, and I call them fans, but I'm going to put some air quotes around them. There's some fans, quote unquote, of New Japan that are questioning a lot of things about the company. And it's not that it's without good reason. We've done that on this show. We're very honest about the product and different challenges that they've had and where they're excelling and where they're failing. But one thing that people really complained about is the product feeling lackluster, them not building stars, them not telling stories, things not feeling quite right. And look at what was happening on this tour. This was the post Wrestle Kingdom tour where they're trying to establish feuds and kind of set the groundwork for long-term stories that they might tell for the rest of the year, even if these are just placeholders to get to the next step. This wasn't intended to be a just get by kind of tour, like how some of those tours felt last year.
Yeah,
you could really tell where they had narratives and storylines and feuds, and this is something that is really a hallmark and a staple of Gato's style of booking. And oftentimes people have praised Gato's booking, and they're only intending to praise the big shows, but they never take a look at how they got to those big shows, and very often it's these kinds of tours. The unfortunate reason why he hasn't been able to do that is because every time he starts to lay one out just like this, shit gets canceled, people get sick, people get injured, and then it throws a monkey wrench into what he's doing. And it's the main reason why they've avoided being too committal to any, individual feuds all year long, and have kind of just booked more like, basically similar to like how you would book a house show, things that maybe don't have as much stakes involved to them, so that they could shuffle things around if need be, because they had to kind of have guerrilla style booking like that. They couldn't have, the classic Gato long-term stories, because these things just keep happening. And unfortunately, it looks like he's trying to do that, but the whole thing with Omicron is that it's highly, highly contagious. People apparently can get reinfected that have had, even people with natural immunity and with, the vaccines and the boosters and all that. So like, this is going to keep happening for at least the next early part of the future, because, this really isn't going away. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah,
It just kind of sucks. It's a challenge that they have. And, it really, it really just kind of puts a halt onto what Gato is known for, what he's so good at. Because without this style of booking, it's really hard to get to those dominions and to those Wrestle Kingdoms and all that sort of stuff, in a logical and well told way, at least for him, anyways.
Right, and we hear all the stories about the little notebook that he has and how he has long-term storytelling, and you can see that in the way the shows are laid out, the way the shows are booked. You see the culmination of big stories. You see new guys elevated, and we've seen that in our time of covering New Japan in the last 5 years or so. And Gato, he's getting hit with a double whammy right now. He's having to deal with domestic wrestlers potentially getting COVID and having to miss tours, and then he's also dealing with the border still not being open and having to bring in a limited number of guys and only guys who had their visa prior to the pandemic starting. And then we know there's a strong roster full of guys. We know there are free agent guys in there, are guys that are being released all over the place that Gato would have brought in if there was no pandemic. So he's having to be held to that as well. So I think he's doing the best he can with the roster that he has, or he's been able to work with in the situations that he has to work with. It's just a difficult thing, like you mentioned, to really, like, how can you book and plan this long-term, year-long storyline if you have no idea if the person's going to get COVID, if they're a guy, if they can get into the country. And let's not even remember, like, injuries. Like, there are still people that injuries can happen too. So that's like another layer on top of that as well.
Yeah, so it's not a great situation. This stuff just keeps happening, and I think at some point they're gonna have to kind of figure something out. I mean, a lot of this obviously isn't in their hands. A lot of it has to do with just nature and science and the government, and we're all kind of just beholden to those factors. But at the same time, I don't know. I guess at some point there will have to be some sort of decision about, like, looking at the numbers, looking at, the risk reward benefit, and kind of seeing where things are. I just hope ultimately things improve. That's the best I can say. I hope things improve. I hope that this eventually becomes a non-factor. But the reason I say, kind of allude to what I was saying earlier, is, like, I don't think COVID's going away. And it's going to become a part of our everyday life, essentially, at some point. Like, there's not going to be a point where it's just like, oh, pandemic's over. Like, there's going to be a point where, that herd immunity they've talked about, that's probably going to have to be attained. And, like, it's just going to be here because, we missed the boat as a world, as a society. Like, we missed the boat to isolate and kill it out like they successfully done with some other potential pandemics. This shit didn't play out like that. So because we couldn't lock down the world, I missed out on a lot of great wrestling, and I'm not happy about it. That's the main thing.
Yes, forget everybody else's health and people die and all that. The Shinihan Pro Wrest was ruined these last 2 years. Damn you, COVID.
Oh, man. We got some questions here. Wiz Factor said, if the COVID situation worsens in Japan to the point that all wrestling shows need to be suspended again, how feasible would it be for New Japan to continue their Japan storylines in the U.S. instead? Such a move could help keep Japanese talent paid during such a lockdown, boost ticket sales for strong tapings, and could provide more crossover storylines with Impact and AEW in the near term.
Yeah, good question here, Wes Factor. I mean, I think it's possible. I mean, they could. We've seen it's easier for guys to come into Japan. Like you mentioned, it would be a cool thing for the strong tapings if you brought Japanese guys here and kind of brought them in. The only thing there, that kind of, takes over the storylines that they're already building on Strong. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of guys on Strong already. So those guys would be kind of taking a back seat if you do this. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I mean, New Japan is a Japanese business, and they need to make their money in Japan. I don't think, coming to the U.S. is going to make up for what they're losing in Japan by bringing guys to work strong tapings?
They would lose more if they brought Japanese talent to the States. I'm not saying like a guy or two to, headline or star, for a couple tours or something like that. If we did this idea, well, I said we as if I'm part of New Japan. If New Japan did what's being suggested here, I mean, bringing in a large portion of the roster and then paying them all out, the cost of travel, the cost of food, lodging, all that sort of stuff, it rises so much more exponentially by bringing them out of Japan over to America. And then, I'm not convinced that, obviously I'm optimistic about Strong and what they're doing. And would it boost ticket sales? Yes, but I'm not convinced that New Japan as a whole, as a brand, is hot enough to be like running a bunch of regular tours here in the States that would light the world on fire, even if they're at full capacity.
Right. And with the Strong tapings, they're running pretty small
once a month
buildings
too.
And some of those small buildings they're having trouble filling sometimes. So it's not like they're running Madison Square Garden every week or running any of these bigger arenas that like AEW or WWE are running.
But let's say they did run those same buildings that they're running now, right? And they sold them out because they brought the actual roster. Okay, cool. What is that? 1,200 tickets? That's not going to make up for the 5 or 6 nights that they're doing, over a 2-week period over in Japan. It's not comparable. Right. And I don't think that they could do a live touring schedule like that here in this. I mean, can you just imagine the logistics of that cost? It's never going to happen. It's not even, this is not feasible, or, it just could not work. Now, the idea of bringing a guy or two to bring them over in the meantime, if stuff was shut down, and let them work Impact and maybe some AEW and Strong, sure. But, they can't tour with the company over here. It's just, they can't. It's not happening.
Yeah, that'd just be too much of a burden.
Plus,
on the company.
We forgot the biggest part, like if COVID is so bad that they have to shut down wrestling shows, they're not leaving the country.
Exactly, yeah.
So, it's a non-factor.
Next question here from Reddit user Dark Soldier said, did NJPW do a show above an ancient Indian burial ground? Did they kill someone's mother and father? Why have they been so cursed? Even young boy Josh's bullying of Yo isn't that cruel compared to NJPW's curse.
We prefer Native American, sir. No, I'm just playing. Actually, like a lot of natives don't care. Like they use the term Indian. It's kind of weird. No, New Japan didn't run a show above an ancient Indian burial ground because they run all their shows in Japan, son. What are you talking about? Now, did they kill someone's mother and father? That's possible.
With,
you never know.
Connections to the Yakuza?
Well, we don't say that word on this show, Jared. What? Apologies, everybody. Whoa, that was But, Antonio Inoki has had some ties in the past to some questionable businessmen, some entrepreneurs, some men of affluence. You never know. Maybe this is comeuppance on them. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? But, the whole world is still, dealing with COVID, just that, Japan is trying to take a more safer approach right now. Obviously, things here in the U.S. we're having shows with full fans, full buildings, stuff like that, and Japan is not ready to go that route just yet. So,
well, the good news out of this, we haven't heard anything negative so far about any of the wrestlers having any really tough times with their recent, potential brushes with COVID. So that's good news. So hopefully everyone stays healthy and they can come back very soon and finish out the rest of the tour.
Yeah, and speaking of COVID, I forgot to put this in a rundown. Our good friend, Rocky Romero, came down with COVID last week. He was scheduled to do a Roppongi Vice reunion on Rampage. Him and Trent were supposed to take on the Young Bucks last Friday on Rampage, but he got COVID, had to miss that matchup. So, Rocky, hope you are feeling better and get well soon.
Definitely echo those sentiments. Another thing about them running in America, it's not like COVID's not here. That's another thing too. What if they did leave Japan and came here and then they all got infected still, which is highly likely just with how contagious this is.
Right.
It still gets shut. Their protocols are self-imposed. They'd still get shut down.
Right.
But we have some other news here. Very interesting. Tetsuya Naito, he renewed his contract with NJPW recently, and in his article with was it Tokyo Sports, I believe?
Yes, Tokyo Sports.
In the interview, he said he took a 24% pay cut. We've now gotten some conflicting information and semi-corroborating report. Friends over Voices Wrestling, they're reporting that they were able to confirm through multiple sources that the latest round of New Japan contracts do in fact contain pay cuts. So we've just recently seen that, like, Hiroshi Tanahashi resigned, Naito, I'm sure there's others, but that the pay cuts across the board are actually going to be closer to 10 to 15%, as opposed to the 24% that Naito quoted. With Naito, they're claiming that he inflated the numbers for the purpose of storyline, which very much falls in line with what we've seen with him and the other members of LIJ, the way that they kind of interact with the news media when they're out and about. They're always kind of working storylines and gimmicks and stuff like that.
Yeah, and for the full story on that, you can check out Voices of Wrestling's Patreon to kind of give some more details on the whole pay cut and what that kind of means for some guys and the future there. Also, some stories on Muto from Wrestle Kingdom Night 3. But like you mentioned here, we have Naito coming out, Tokyo Sports, getting permission to use this pay cut as a part of his feud and storyline with Okada. He was making comments, saying, he had to take a pay cut because the company needed to keep paying Okada his fee and giving him an increase of money. And so kind of playing that into this upcoming title match that we have coming up.
He also kind of alluded, if I read it correctly, that like he himself has had a down year and wasn't on top, and it kind of felt more like Okada took center stage during this past year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the company stock went down and he had to take a pay cut because he wasn't the guy on top, Okada was. And if Okada was doing so well, why does he have to take a pay cut? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Basically
yeah.
blaming the low state of the company on Kazuchika Okada. Never mind that your buddy Shingo was the champion the whole year. Nah, it's not about that. It's Okada's fault.
Right. Never mind Will Ospreay, left and vacated the belt.
Okada. You fucking bum.
So what do you think about this whole gimmick here of using the pay cut as part of storyline?
Worker's gonna work, baby. You know how it is. You know how we do, us workers. Most of what I say on the show is not even real. This is a gimmick. I work you guys every week. You believe all the shit I say. Oh man. But the old work's the new work.
Right, yeah. I think it's a very interesting way to look at things, a very, kind of a smart play there by Naito. Like you mentioned, we've seen him, how he's kind of manipulated the media in the past just to kind of lift up his tranquilo image, the image of LIJ, just kind of that kind of, tweener heel kind of attitude they have sometimes. And yeah, I think it's very cool kind of using a real life situation, exaggerating it a little bit to make the feud with Okada personal. I mean, obviously these guys have been feuding for several years now, and there's a story you can tell without really having to add anything extra, but it does kind of add a little extra flair to this matchup. It's the beginning of the year, kind of big title feud here, and adds a little storyline to it. Like, all right, like Naito wants to get back on top so he can save New Japan, and he thinks he's the guy to do it.
Yeah. Well, like we said earlier, Naito does this when he's, being interviewed by the newspapers and everything like that. He works whatever, angle or program he's in. He works that into whatever he's doing. So it makes sense.
Yeah. Well, let's move on now to the New Year's Golden Series. I don't think we'll, give a blow-by-blow review of all these matches. We'll run through.
What are you talking about? Listen, I don't know if you guys know. Let me just clue you in right now. I've spent countless hours prepping for this episode, okay? Anybody can roll out of bed the day after a Wrestle Kingdom, the day after a G1 final, after a Dominion, and, any person can, any layman, any fucking mark can get on a mic and tell you what they thought about it. That's fine. It takes persistence and preparation to talk about Goto, Ishii, Yoshihashi, and Yo, okay? And the House of Torture, It's not easy being the guy that has to, break down Hiromu Takahashi versus Ryohei Oiwa, all right? I spent a lot of time prepping for this show. This is where you really show up. These are the game days where you either play or you take your ball and you go home, okay? We're fucking doing this. Match by match, minute by minute. You better have, I swear to God, Jeremy, you better have all the match finishes ready to go and the recaps. We're going deep, okay? We're going deep on Kojima, Hanma, and Yano defeating Suzuki-gun, okay?
Yes, the most in-depth New Year's Golden Series review that you're going to get ever on the internet.
I did watch the first show. I did not watch the VOD show. I just figured it's the same show.
Yeah,
but not as good. No commentary.
I did watch both of them. There was commentary on the VOD show, so I guess there's some different TV partner.
Kevin Kelly?
No Kevin Kelly. It was just Japanese commentary.
I think it was a Samurai TV version.
Right. So I think, with Samurai TV, it looks like their VOD still has commentary.
Yeah, but I don't speak Japanese, son. I've made a concerted effort to only listen to Kevin Kelly from now on. When Ian Riccaboni shows up on Strong, I'm going to skip those episodes too.
Wow.
Yeah, Kevin Kelly mark here. No, I'm just playing. But let's do it. Let's talk about Golden Series Night 1.
Yeah, so January 20th show opened up. We had Great Okan defeating Yuto Nakashima via armbar, 5 minutes and 35 seconds. So pretty much the Great Okan is kind of eating up Yuto here, teasing him, trying to get him in his guard, and just kind of out-wrestling him and getting him out of there really quickly. Yeah,
some really good, slick grappling out of these two guys. There was a lot of people that kind of hemmed and hawed about Great Okan winning, the Best Technician Award from Tokyo Sports, and I get it. If the Marks had their way, Zack Sabre Jr. would be the guy that wins it every year, and probably rightfully so. But you see Okan work a match with a young lion like Nakashima, and he's got a lot of tricks up his sleeve. I don't think he's the most undeserving technician. He really can do some cool stuff in there. So I liked that part. But one thing that was interesting about this match was Okan wore his big match gear.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
But he didn't do any of his mannerisms when he walked out. He didn't have the hat or the jacket on. He stormed to the ring almost kind of I don't want to say he was a young lion, but maybe fired up the way a young lion was. And, a couple of years ago, he was a young lion and just fucking ate up Yuto Nakashima and came in there hot and angry. And I mean, probably because of the losses that he, took those 2 nights in Wrestle Kingdom.
Right, yeah, he's frustrated. The United Empire is supposed to be on top, and the world came crashing down for them. Wrestle Kingdom, they lost all their matches. Well, they won on night 1, that 6-man, but then they lost. Okan lost to who did Okan face again? He faced
Sonata.
Yeah, Sonata. He lost to Sonata. Then Cobb lost to Naito, and then Ospreay lost to Okada. So they all lost their matches. Kind of in a funk right now.
Here's how deep they are in the mud. There's members of this group that he doesn't even know. Okay?
Yeah, he has not met the TJP yet. He has not met Aussie
Open.
Open.
Aussie Open? The fuck is that?
Yeah, he's frustrated.
He's angry. He was an angry man. He came out here, and the other nice little tidbit with it is, he went for the straight armbar, and Yuto Nakashima very famously dislocated that same arm when he made his debut as a young lion, and had to rehab that injury. So kind of adding insult to injury.
Yeah. So then following that, we had Hiromu Takahashi defeating Ryohei Oiwa 7 minutes 24 seconds with a Boston Crab. A little twist to this matchup. Hiromu came out rocking Kamitachi-inspired mask, his former gimmick when he was an excursion in CMLL, and pretty much tried to up the stakes for this matchup, knowing, he's like, always a young lion. He could probably beat him pretty easy, so to give him some extra motivation, he put 10,000 yen on the line, and then if Oiwa could get the mask off of Hiromu, that would count as a win for Oiwa. So Oiwa trying.
I don't think he would win the match. He would win the sum of money.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I listened to this on the English podcast, on the English commentary version. And Kevin Kelly spoke with Chris Charlton. He added a little bit of background on what was really going on here. So the deal is, I can't remember the Japanese word, but there's a tradition in Japanese culture that when it's the new year, you give family members will pack these little traditional envelopes and then put a small sum of money in them for the children. And it's kind of like a New Year's gift that they give out to the little kids. And as you get a little bit older, they'll put a little bit more money in it. And, usually around the time you're like 18, 19, maybe, graduating, going to college, they usually cut it off, basically. It's something for children. So, like, the idea that, like, Hiromu came down and had one of those, it's not just so much about the money. It's the insult of him, like, treating him like a little kid, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, because this is not something you give to adults. Like, this is something that you give to children, basically. And then the funny thing too is, like, Oiwa probably can use the money, so like, he's like, fuck yeah, I'll take your mask off.
Yeah. See, then I guess that's why we wait for Kevin Kelly, because I watched the Japanese and I didn't catch any of that.
Yeah, but the interesting thing in the match, Hiromu was wearing a Kamitachi, inspired multicolored mask. At a certain point in the match, Oiwa finally had him seated. He's undoing the mask, which is the classic, lucha libre heel move, like, oh my God, he's stealing his mask. Except this time, he gets it off. And when he pulls it off, there's another Kamitachi mask underneath. The old switcheroo, the old Rey Mysterio. What's that?
Said it worked him.
Yeah, worked him. And, unfortunately, Oiwa was not able to win the money. And even more importantly, he wasn't able to win the match. And yeah, like you mentioned, Hiromu beat him with a Boston Crab. And that is actually something that's part of one of his go-tos when he's wrestling Lions. He doesn't use his finishers or his signature moves like the Dynamite Plunge or anything like that. Like, he almost always exclusively beats them with with the Boston Crab, kind of like signifying like that he can humble them using their own shit.
Right. Your young lion won't treat you like a young lion.
I could think of something funny to say there, but I'm not going to say it.
Well, let's move on then to the next matchup. We had Tiger Mask and Togi Makabe defeating the Bullet Club team of Jado and Taiji Ishimori 8 minutes 59 seconds via a reverse double armbar. So this match building up the upcoming junior tag title match with Flying Tiger, Robbie Eagles, and Tiger Mask taking on Bullet Club's cutest tag team, Taiji Ishimori and El Phantasmo, both ELP and Robbie, currently out of Japan right now.
Probably the lowest match of the night, but it was fine and it was fun. You got Makabe and Jado out there, so you kind of know what to expect with that.
Right.
Tiger Mask, he's not a spring chicken either. And Taiji Ishimori trying to make something happen with all these, corpses in the ring with him. So
yeah,
there was a funny thing during the post-match comments. Togi Makabe was like, "You thought you could beat us, me and Tiger Mask?" He's like, "Don't you know he's a champion? You had no chance of beating us." He's like, "I'll let you in on a little secret. I think I could take both of you all by myself." And I was thinking, like, yeah, in the kayfabe, he is, a former IWGP heavyweight champion, big star, and, 2 junior dudes. Like, he probably could beat them.
Yeah. Oh, man. So moving on to the next matchup here, we had Satoshi Kojima, Tomoyuki Hanma, and Toru Yano defeating the Suzuki-gun unit of Minoru Suzuki, Taichi, and Taka Michinoku when getting a lariat. Kojima hitting a lariat on Taka to get the win for his team. And here we're building up the upcoming KOPW matchup between Suzuki and Toru Yano.
Yeah, I thought this match was pretty good, actually. Kojima was out there working hard like he always does. Hama was working really hard. Same thing with Taichi and Taka Michinoku. As far as like the workhorse guys, you had a good mix of them, and then all that sort of surrounded the storyline with KOPW with Yano and Suzuki, and say what you will about Yano and Suzuki, I fucking always mark out for their feuds and I mark out for their matches because there's just I don't know, there's a really entertaining and hilarious dynamic where like Yano always comes up like, he stays winning over Suzuki and like it makes no fucking sense.
Yeah.
And like Suzuki gets so mad and we're kind of seeing those same elements like playing out here. So yeah, I thought that for what this was, it was pretty entertaining, and everybody played their role really well, and it was fine.
Yeah, fun little matchup here. Post match, Suzuki once again gets himself found in the handcuffed to the rope. So obviously, there's going to be some kind of handcuff gimmick offered up in the voting for their KOPW match.
Possibly, I think that it's going to be something where like Suzuki wants some sort of like submission match because he's been doing a lot of like not wanting to break on the ropes, a lot of like submissions, and he's like trying to get Yano with that. And then, we're seeing Yano bust out the freaking handcuffs and the lock and all that. So I think it's gonna be like one or the other as far like if they do a fan vote.
Right.
Or at least that's what I think anyways. I could be wrong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Also, Suzuki will offer something more serious than Yano will offer something related to the handcuff. So we'll see how.
Well, maybe there have been times where we haven't even gotten a fan vote, so I don't know.
Right. This might just the IWGP committee might just determine what the stipulation is going to be.
Does KOPW fall under the purview of the IWGP committee? Do we know who's overseeing? I think Kazuchika Okada might be the sole member of the KOPW board.
The Kazuchika Okada board?
Yes.
I mean, that is absolutely possible. He created the thing, so he could be the single governing body over this.
I think he is, and nobody's talking about it. It's kind of like a little secret. They come to him and they're like, yo, what do you want us to do? And he's like, fuck, I don't know, bro. Like, I'm about to defend the world title. Go do a fan vote, okay? Do a fan vote. Just get the fuck out of here.
Let's move on to the next matchup here. So we had Hiroyoshi Tenzan, Master Wato, and Ryusuke Taguchi defeating the Suzuki unit of Doki, El Sporado, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Master Wato got the win here, applying his new submission hold, the Vendaval, on Doki to get the win for the team.
Yeah, man. Suzuki-gun down bad,
Yeah, man. They're hurting here. I was already a Doki guy, but after Taichi Mania in the Taichi match, I'm even more in on Doki. I want this man to have a great record this year. I want to see this man, achieve some heights this year. And I was really backing him here and hoping, that he would, pull one up on Tenzan or something and get the win for his team.
Come on, bro. Do you even watch New Japan? Okay, let me just school you. All right. Wato is the challenger. Obviously, he's going to beat Doki. I can't believe you would even embarrass me by putting out a theory like that.
I knew what was going to happen. I'm telling you what I wanted to happen.
Oh, and then for you to suggest that a junior should beat a heavyweight in New Japan, my God, Joey, come on. I do all this. I watched all these hours of New Japan for you to throw this trash out there. I'm tired of this. No, I actually wanted to get your all jokes aside, I wanted to get your opinion on Doki and freaking Taichi because I gave everybody sort of like my rundown, but like you went and watched that. Did you only watch that match or did you watch any of the other show?
I watched the Taka and Desperado match.
Which was pretty good, huh?
Yeah, it was. And Taka, Despy was like the bay face in peril. Taka was really working over the knee of Desperado and just trying to get a lot of heat. And then Despy kind of making a fiery comeback towards the end there to win.
Yeah. But what were your, just quick thoughts on Doki and Taichi, since we're on the subject, I guess?
Yeah, I love the matchup. With everything that you explain, and when you watch like the promos and stuff like that, and like you get so much context into the match, it was such an emotional matchup, and you can, even on the clap crowd, you can tell they were just so into it, and they were just kind of living and dying with all Doki's moves, and him, coming up and getting some great near falls on Taichi. And just the great back and forth counters. I saw a spot you're talking about where Doki went for the Asai moonsault. Came a little bit short. That was very scary.
Yeah.
But yeah, these guys are busting out their signature moves. Taichi hit him with the big dangerous suplex for a great near fall. Doki hit him with the suplex de la Luna at one point towards the end. But Taichi kicked out. That was a great near fall because that's Doki's finish. So emotional. And then you have Milano Collection AT, like you mentioned, he's crying a commentary, and eventually, after Doki I got a near fall, he like jumps off a commentary table, goes to the ring, and he's just like smashing the ring apron and really cheering on Doki, and Doki's trying to put Taichi away. But
bro, you're making me relive it all over again. I'm getting teary-eyed right now.
Bro, it was just so awesome and so emotional. Everybody was just getting into it, and then finally Taichi puts him away, and the big embrace afterwards, and Doki's just laying there on the mat just crying. Hasn't even gotten up yet, just crying his heart out, and Taichi picks him up and hugs, and this is this great that was a star-making moment there for Doki. I know it wasn't on a main New Japan show, but that was a star-making performance, and that, to me, really elevated Doki, and it just showed what he can do. I mean, we already saw what he's been doing in some of the bigger Hiromu matches and some of the Super Junior stuff, but like here in a main event against a heavyweight, like I thought he really shined, looked really great, took a lot of risk, and became a star in that night for me.
Yeah, bro. Incredible rundown just off the dome. You didn't even know I was going to ask you to do that. So, if you guys haven't checked out Taichi versus Doki, it is a huge recommend, and it's a can't miss match, and it's something you need to see if you're going to be voting on, our awards come the end of 2022, because I mean, you don't want to be an uneducated voter, voting for some, fucking, I don't know, Minoru Suzuki US excursion match when Doki Taichi happened. You got to see it, so you can at least form your own opinion. But the match is awesome. And I mean, if you guys didn't believe my rundown from a few weeks ago, like I'm of the opinion that people find Jeremy more appealing. So if anything, I think your review is going to boost the profile of this match and bring more eyes to it, which is a good thing,
Right, put some more money in Taichi and Taka's pockets.
Well, that's why we pay you, the big bucks on this show, because I mean, listen to that rundown. I mean, it was amazing. So. But the funny thing is, every year when they do Taka Taichi Mania, there has been something that really plays majorly into the overall kayfabe of New Japan on some level. So like the first year, the main event was Taichi versus Naito, and at the time Taichi was still a junior, like he was just kind of bordering on that weight limit, and probably needed to go heavyweight for a while, but was still in the junior division. And this was just after Naito had lost that Wrestle Kingdom match to Okada. And so, he was kind of bouncing back. It was literally like right after that. And they went out there and had a banger, like a true awesome match. Like had we been doing excursion match of the year at the time, probably would have got nominated. And that was the first step to the overall Naito Taichi feud that we've seen, really present itself on the main stage here in New Japan over the years. But also, that was the entry point for Taichi going into the heavyweight division that same year, with that New Japan Cup and the matches he had with Naito and Tanahashi, and really saw him kind of step up and break out and really get elevated in the overall hierarchy of New Japan, right?
Right.
So that was the first one. The second time, there was an undercard match between Jun Akiyama and Desperado, and this was just before that year's Best of the Super Juniors, and Despy came out with the flyest fucking gear. I mean, it was a special, event gear that he's never worn again. It was like this suit vest shit. It was really, really, really cool. And he had a death match with Jun Akiyama. And I mean, when I say death match, I'm not talking about like, the way like One Nation Radio calls like a plunder hardcore match. They call all gimmick matches death matches to be funny. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a real death match where they're getting skewered in the head and shit. And it was like, you've never seen Desperado have a death match before. So it was really, really, really cool. And obviously it was a detriment because at the end of the match, he got his jaw broken. And there was a lot of speculation that he was really going to have a breakout Super Junior that year. And then he was unable to compete in the Super Juniors that year. And that's what caused Doki to step in as his replacement for that year's Super Junior. And that's how Doki came into the company. And then the return of Desperado following that big, very publicized match that he had with Jun Kasai. Did I say Jun Akiyama earlier?
I think you did.
I might have. Sorry about that. Yeah, Jun Kasai. And that really raised his profile, especially when he came back from the injury, after the fact, and then kind of became a main player in the junior division. So even though, that kept him out of Super Juniors, that kind of made him. And then we're sort of seeing, maybe to a smaller degree, they're trying to do the same thing with Doki. Now, I don't know how much that's going to cross over to New Japan, but I mean, I've got to assume it's going to play some role, So, I like those Taichi Mania events. So we'll see what happens if they ever do another one.
Yeah.
But I guess we should get back to this this fifth match on the card. So again, Tenzan, Wato, Taguchi, they defeated Suzuki team Doki, Desperado, Kanemaru. The biggest thing is, like you mentioned, Wato picked up the submission win with his new submission finisher, the Vendaval. He beat Doki with that, and sort of, just building some steam and some momentum, putting Despy's guy Doki away, and showing himself to be a real credible threat to that title with that maneuver going into their title match later, next month.
Right, that's the same maneuver that he used to tap out Desperado on the pre-show of Wrestle Kingdom Night 2. So he's really getting this submission hold over here, picking up a lot of steam and momentum. And, I think Wato has been looking pretty good the last 4 months. I thought he looked pretty good in the Super Juniors, and he's looking good in all these kind of multi-man preview matches. And so I think the title match with him and Desperado should be pretty good.
Yeah, the thing with Wato is, like, you have people on two different sides of the spectrum when it comes to him. You have the Wato truthers, the people that are like, if you're not paying attention to what's going on with Wato, your eyes are closed. You're not watching the program, and they go too hard. They're acting like he's stepped into this into this like new level where he's just so far beyond what basically
Right.
what Doki actually is.
Right, yeah.
But then you have the other side, the people that saw him when he first came to the company in 2020 and was botching and and just was shitting the bed. Basically, there's no other way to put it, and they think Doki sucks, and they're gonna hold on to those initial first impressions of him, no matter how much better he gets. And they are literally like, Doki is shit. Look at his gimmick. Look at how he dresses. The company isn't doing any favors for him, blah, blah, blah. And then the truth is somewhere in the middle, and it's neither of those things. The reality is he's gotten a lot more confident over the past year. He's gotten a lot more competent just in the ring. Like, he's always been a good wrestler, but there was a lot of botches and a lot of weird mistakes. That stuff's kind of gone. I can't remember the last time I saw him mess anything up. A dive, catching somebody, a spot, none of that. Like, he's really, really good now. I mean, if you had to give me a choice, and I know that this is kind of becoming a running bit, but if I had to watch a Yo or a Wato singles match, I'm going to pick a Wato singles match at this point. and especially since that August match that he had with Robbie Eagles last year, the non-title match, that sort of seemed to be the kickoff for this new sort of resurgence of the rehabilitated Watto. And I'm not saying that I think he's going to like be a main player in the division just yet, but the whole thing about him like being the shits, that's not true anymore, you know?
Right. Well, I think with the junior division so thin right now, with them not able to bring in guys in talent, like it's a perfect opportunity for a guy like Watto to kind of grab the brass ring, make the most of the opportunity and the screen time he's getting, and really turn some heads and let Gato and the booking team know, like, hey, I'm getting better, I'm improving, I'm a guy you can count on to put in some big junior match situations. So to me, I think he's taking advantage of the time he's getting now. Like you said, he's been improving. I think this program with Desperado is going to be a big thing that's going to help him get over and kind of move him forward in the junior division. And I think he's going to be a player this year. He was, as a young lion, he was kind of the captain of that class and one of the young lions that were really pushing. And, he had some great stuff as a young lion. He was a guy that we were really interested in and thought he was going to do pretty well. So kind of coming back with a slow start was kind of weird to see, but I feel like he's kind of picking back up, like you mentioned. He's kind of finding his rhythm. He's more comfortable in the gimmick. He's not, as awkward as he was. I don't really see him doing many, like, kind of that awkward pose that he was doing towards the beginning. Like, he's kind of transformed the gimmick. He's made it his own. He's kind of changed up, like, the ring gear and the entrance gear. The hair's not as bright blue as it was. So he's making some tweaks. He's finding who he is in this Master Watto performance, in his Master Watto character.
I agree with you. The one thing I didn't like about your review is you said grab the brass ring, which was triggering for me because I saw that show on Sunday night. They had a grab the brass ring ladder match, and it was not good. In fact, that whole show was not good. In fact, if you're a GCW fan, you are not good. I don't know what to tell you guys. That we can talk about that maybe a little later, but
yeah.
But yeah, I agree with all that, and I think it's gonna be interesting to see if Watto steps up to the plate when he challenges Desperado later this coming tour. One last thing. Post-match, Taguchi was complaining about how he's not getting a shot at the junior titles when the Bullet Club, junior team is. And he had Watto with him, and he's like, wait a second. The 69th junior tag team champions, and our tag team's name is 6 and 9. 6 and 9. He's like, huh. He's like, Rocky's not in the States. I've got a tag team partner right here. So, like, I think they might already kind of be teasing that they'll be the next guys to challenge. So maybe that's the next step for Watto following, the title challenge, whether he wins or loses.
Yeah, it can turn into a tag title program, and him and Rocky can achieve him and Taguchi can achieve Taguchi's dream of becoming the 69th IWGP Junior Tag Team Champions.
One other thing, too, I wanted to touch on, the previous match, Hanma, he seemed to be working really hard lately. I don't know if it's just to kind of make up for the deficit because, there's less guys on the tour and stuff like that, or if he's actually trying to step up and, kind of work himself into a more favorable, position in the company. But there was a point after Wrestle Kingdom where he was talking about challenging Evil for the Never title, and then that shit just never happened. But he was so adamant that I really believed that they might be going that direction. And then at the end of this show, he was talking about him and God, what's wrong with me? Why do I forget names? Makabe, him and Makabe challenging for the world titles or the tag titles, which I think could maybe actually happen just because how limited everything is. So I don't know. I've got this weird feeling Hanma might be like in some sort of title challenge scenario in the next couple months, honestly.
Yeah,
as weird as that sounds.
I can see that happen, especially with the thin roster. And like you mentioned, he's been working really hard. And even like with him, he's been hitting the Kokeshi more now in the matches instead of missing them all the time. So maybe
that's the other thing that's like kind of tipping it off for me was like that Wrestle Kingdom match where he like won, and I'm like, why did they give him the win? And he's been hitting the Kokeshi, and I'm like, I think they might be like giving him a little bit of a mini push to set him up as some sort of title challenger.
Yeah, that'd be cool. He's been working really hard, and when he's in the right one-on-one situation with the right guy, he still can have a banger. So I'm down for it.
Yeah. They should let him bring light tubes back since he invented those.
I wouldn't mind seeing him bash a light tube over Evil's head.
6th match of the night, semi-main event. We had the Chaos Trio, Goto, Ishii, or no, 4-man, sorry about that, squad. Goto, Ishii, Yo, and Yoshihashi. They defeated the House of Torture team of Dick Togo, Evil, Sho, and Yujiro Takahashi, 11 minutes and 41 seconds.
Yeah, Stone Pitbull Ishii got the win here with the vertical brain buster on Dick Togo. And this was your House of Torture match. Like I mentioned in the preview, I thought it was a little bit better having all 4 of these guys involved in the match because you kind of limit the run-ins. But also there was still the cheating and pulling off a turnbuckle pad and Yujiro biting and them kind of doing all the shenanigans they can try to do to get the advantage and beat the Chaos team here. But Chaos team was able to kind of fight through all that shenanigans, and Ishii really taking it to Dick Togo towards the end there. And, the backstage comments coming out with Ishii talking about the Wrestle Kingdom match.
Those are so funny.
Being like a stain on his career and how he was kind of ashamed of that match. And so kind of taking some pain out here on the Booker, dropping him on his head with the brain buster and getting the win for the team here.
The Booker?
He's
not the Booker.
The part of the assistant Booker, whatever you want to call him, guy in the creative in the room.
Yeah. He's in the room. He's in the room, but let's not disrespect Naito. But no, in all seriousness, Ishii, like what he was really saying there was, you brought down my average star rating, you bitch. I'm gonna make you pay for it. That's what he was saying. Like,
yeah.
What if him and Evil go out there and like just put on a classic because he's like, all right, no more of this shit in the bed stuff. Like, we're gonna do things my way, and they go out there and have like a 5-star classic.
that dude, Ishii would win Wrestler of the Year right there. Like there's no voting or competition. Like you get Evil to a 5-star lumberjack match in a clap crowd environment. Like just close up shop. You're the Wrestler of the Year.
You would think so, but I mean, Ishii's been having so many classics for so many years, and he still can't seem to get votes in other awards. So
Yeah.
Main event. The LIJ team of Sanada, Shingo, and Tetsuya Naito, they defeated the team of Hiroshi Tanahashi, Kazuchika Okada, and Yuji Nagata. 20 minutes, 16 seconds. This was your main event. And I got to tell you, Jeremy, I really liked this main event quite a bit. Something that was very interesting about it was there were moments where obviously they did the scrambles, everyone gets in the ring and hits their shit and all that, but there were large stretches where they just had a lot of singular wrestling in this tag team match, which is not always the MO for New Japan style multi-man tags. And, like, especially with the various different feuds that are kind of ongoing, like we got to see a lot of great in-ring wrestling between Sanada and Tanahashi that I thought was kind of like a highlight of the match. And then, we got Okada and Naito, really teasing up their big match that's coming up, playing the hits. And then Nagata just being like, I'm not going to like take a step back here and like be the odd man out. Like, so him and Shingo just fucking ran it. We've seen them go, in singles matches, even just as recently as the G1, which was a fantastic match. And everyone here just played their parts really, really well. Told a really great story. And then the finishing sequence between Naito and Yuji Nagata, I thought really stood out too. I'm not going to go full forward, but I'm probably like 3 3/4 on this. I thought it was a very good main event.
Right. These are one of these matches that we talk about where we say, LIJ is always great in multi-man matchups. Like in a show like this where you have the LIJ unit, these guys work really hard and they have such great chemistry together no matter who's in there from the unit, and usually can have a really good, fun main event on a show like this. And that's exactly what they did here while, advancing the stories between Sanada, who's challenging for the U.S. title against Tanahashi, and then also we got Naito challenging for the world title against Okada, and Shingo's kind of in the back burner right now, trying to rebuild from the loss from Wrestle Kingdom. So just a lot of interesting stories that are being told here, a lot of good action. You know, Okada and Naito always have great matches together, and so just seeing those interactions just kind of reminded people of that, and you know, got me excited for the matchup. And you know, Sonata and Tanahashi, the same thing. Their matches together have also been really good, and there's just some good interaction with them in the match as well. So really fun matchup here. Naito ends up getting the win for the team. He hits a Destino on Yuji Nagata, and he pins him with the disrespect. You know, he does the Blue Justice salute as he's pinning this man. It was hilarious.
One thing with the Tanahashi Sonata feud that Kevin Kelly really pointed out was one reason Tanahashi wants to wrestle Sonata. Obviously, part of it is that Sonata picked up that big win over Okan in Wrestle Kingdom, so that's sort of almost like a de facto number one contender style match. But also, it's because Tanahashi veered away from his roots to have that, you know, bloody and violent feud with Kenta, right? And after experiencing that, seeing what he was capable of, all the damage he inflicted on Kenta, all the damage that was inflicted on himself, and he's like, okay, I need to veer away from this, you know, GCW-ism, all right? And I got to veer back to the true way, you know, the pure wrestling way.
The wrestling.
That's, the Southern wrestling. So that's the reason why he wanted to wrestle Sonata. And that's sort of what, and you're seeing that play out with the style. Obviously, Sonata always does a lot of great chain wrestling and grappling. That's sort of his thing. But you're seeing Tanahashi really play into that as well. And it's kind of the incorporated story of the feud, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah, definitely kind of a different take on the feud and just kind of an interesting kind of character thing for Tanahashi. And I like that Kevin Kelly is kind of bring that out there because, yeah, definitely brings a whole new wrinkle to this feud and this matchup and kind of a real purpose of Tanahashi trying to, like you mentioned, to kind of return back to, you know, the classic ace who was, you know, straight up, you know, pure professional wrestler, not really doing gimmick matches or death matches and all that kind of stuff. So good stuff here.
With Shingo, I don't know if it was the first night or the second night, but there was a screenshot of his post-match comment where he was talking about how there's a prize that, like, some prize he has his eyes or his goals set on that he's going to, you know, potentially made known in the future. And a lot of people are speculating that maybe it was like, you know, the GHC title or something like that. You know what I always think? I always just think, you know, when these guys don't got shit going on, they're just always like working themselves into angles, you know, just to, you know, because no one's telling them what to say. So they're just
Right.
like, well, I've got a little surprise for you guys. And everyone's like, oh, fuck, what's he about to do?
Right. We see this case so many times with all these backstage promos. Like, these guys are just kind of shooting off the hip and there's no script. So they're just kind of saying whatever, trying to set their own storylines and angles up. So, yeah, who knows what Shingo's up. It could be anything.
Well, that's going to do it for the first night. Last thoughts I had. One thing we forgot to mention, the Takahashi Oiwa match was actually changed from a tag team match because Fujita, who was scheduled to team with Oiwa, suffered a shoulder injury, so he wasn't able to compete. They had to change it from a tag match to a singles.
Right.
But I actually thought that benefited the overall card because we got those two Young Lion singles matches against, you know, pretty big stars, which is kind of notable. That doesn't always happen. And then, you know, the rest of the show obviously was forwarding a lot of different storylines. So we got a lot of quasi mini angles, but everyone just seemed to be working really, really hard. This was the first show post Wrestle Kingdom. You know, we didn't get a New Year's Dash, and there was kind of a little bit of a randomness to this show that almost kind of reminded me of New Year's Dash, where I was like, these guys are going out there, they're working hard, they're having fun. You know, they're kind of just jumping into the swing of things because it's the new year and it's the first, you know, big tour. And I thought that this was like what I like when what I would call a very good Road 2 style show. You know, they didn't call it Road 2, but that's what it is. And this is what I like to see out of New Japan when they do a Road 2 type show at the highest of levels, which is basically what this was.
Yeah. So let's real quickly go over the results here of the second show that aired this past weekend in the Golden Series. So it's from January 21st Show opened up. We had Great Okan defeating Oiwa via armbar, 5 minutes and 31 seconds. So very similar to the previous night. Okan kind of coming out big match gear, not doing all the gimmick entrance and kind of getting down to business. But the one thing that was different about this matchup was Okan kind of wanted to up the ante on Hiromu's little bet thing that you explained from the previous night. So he kind of came up with his own envelope with more money than Hiromu had offered, which Hiromu seemed upset about. And so there was kind of some beef between them. Hiromu was on commentary, and then Great Okan went in and had the matchup with Oiwa and pretty much just ate him up like he did the previous night with Nakashima. So went in there, got the armbar, tapped him out. So Okan really getting this armbar submission over here on these shows. And I'm wondering...
Well, he was mad. He was probably mad because he was trying to steal his gimmick.
Right.
You know? Just like any other New Japan podcast that came out after us, they're trying to steal our gimmick. Because we are the longest running, episodic New Japan podcast on the internet. So, anyone else that's shown up since then, gimmick infringement.
I wonder if that's going to set up anything possibly with Okan and Hiromu in some kind of open weight match in the future. Guess we'll have to see there.
Well, fans of Hiromu Takahashi that have been lobbying for him to go to heavyweight for, it seems like years now, they would probably love that. Even if it was just in some sort of interim open weight capacity. We've seen them, toy around with that with like Will Ospreay in the past and different guys. So maybe that could open doors. I don't know.
Yeah. So in the second matchup here, we had Bushi defeating Yuto Nakashima 8 minutes 29 seconds with Boston Crab. Very similar to previous night with the kind of Hiromu match. This also was supposed to be a tag match, like you mentioned. Vegeta out with the injuries, turned into a singles match here. So kind of very similar to the previous night with Bushi in the place of Hiromu. And, good little match here. Just like Hiromu gets to win with the Boston Crab to keep Nakashima in his place. Then move on to the next match. We had Tiger Mask and Yuji Nagata defeating the Bullet Club team of Gato and Taichi Ishimori, 11 minutes and 28 seconds. Tiger Mask once again getting the win with the reverse double armbar on to Gato. Again, very similar to the previous night's match that had Jado instead of Gato. Again, it's Taichi Ishimori trying to do his best. But you did have Nagata in here, so which is a little bit better than having Makabe. So good match there.
I'll take Tiger Mask and Nagata all day over Makabe.
Yeah, and I like the Tiger Mask. He's wearing his blue gear to match with Nagata, and they looked pretty raw. Good, a nice little tag team there.
Yeah, Blue Tiger.
Yeah. So then the fourth matchup, we had Tenzan, Master Wato, and Taguchi defeating Despi, Taka, and Yoshinobu Kanemaru 10 minutes and 55 seconds, with Master Wato getting the win once again on Doki, this time with a new pinning finisher, the La Carretera. So Doki getting over Wato getting over another finish here that could potentially come into play for the Desperado title match.
Yeah, a lot of weapons in that arsenal.
Yeah, when you're on the way to the Grand Master, you have to make sure you're properly equipped.
That's right.
So then we move on to the fifth matchup here. The Chaos team of Goto, Ishii, Yo, and Yoshihashi once again defeat the House of Torture team of Sho, Togo, Yujiro, and Evil. And this time it was Goto and Yoshihashi. They hit their Shoto double team move on Dick Togo to get the win. So again, this was the exact same match. Pretty much the same layout of, House of Torture trying to get shenanigans over on the Chaos guys, with the Chaos guys fighting through and bringing it to this team, and Dick Togo once again eating the pinfall. And then we
with that trick. I think it'll be really interesting if House of Torture ever comes to America, because if you boo them, that's the role they play. That's kind of appropriate,
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine them getting cheered, maybe by some freak fans, but I couldn't imagine that. But then there's the kinds of fans that actually hate them, and I could imagine jeering them with some pretty hurtful cheers. Like, if people don't know, like we are pretty adept at getting over chants in different wrestling shows, and I know that those aren't always the most popular in, say, a New Japan setting, but like I could see them showing up and us being there and like getting some shit over that, like, oh, you really don't like us.
Yeah.
And then it's like oh, we're not heels getting heat, like they really fucking hate us. Like, it's bordering into disrespect. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm glad you mentioned fan reaction to Evil. So the one thing I did notice on both of these shows that was kind of very disturbing was just the amount of Evil House of Torture towels that were in the crowd.
Oh no!
I noticed several. There was at least 5 within the Corkin crowd of people holding up these House of Torture, King of Darkness, Evil towels, and I was like,
that's more towels than I've seen for Hangman Page on AEW. So
I'm like, man, no, this man is like starting to get, Corkins is the smart crowd, and I'm like, no, like he's getting over with the smarks in Japan. This is not good.
Bro, you know the deal with Evil. He's always been fucking over. And you know the deal with me, I don't like him, so I've never understood it. So I wouldn't be surprised. Remember that time in Dallas?
Yes, the press conference, he got huge pop.
Oh my God, he came out and he got one of the and when I say loudest, I'm not saying like one of the like 10 or 15 loudest pops. Like it was like one of the 2 or 3 loudest pops of anybody that came out for that press conference. And like we're talking a press conference when like Okada was there, Tanahashi, Naito, all the big hitters, and like fucking Evil comes out. These people lost their shit. And I was looking around like, where are we? There are a lot of like diehard Evil fans in Dallas, Texas. It's so weird.
Yeah, really, really weird.
But that was pre-House Torture, of course.
Yeah, that was LIJ Evil, where he was pretending to be The Rock, and everything is evil. I miss those days. Main event here, 6-man tag action. We had the LIJ team of Sanada, Shingo, and Naito. They defeat Tanahashi, Okada, and Togi Makabe 18 minutes and 44 seconds. This time it was Sanada getting the win of the team. Hits the skull in on Togi Makabe to get the submission victory for the LIJ team here. So we've noticed that the title challengers are picking up the win. Naito got the win the first night. Sanada getting the win this night. Again, very similar to the previous night, except you had Makabe in here, except instead of Nagata. So it
was worse.
Yeah. Makabe was not about that bump life, but, he got in there with Shingo, and they had a little layered exchange. That was pretty cool. And so, again, good back and forth matchup. A lot of great action between the, title matches coming up. And I think the first night's was better, but, again, a nice main event here to get us ready for the U.S. title match and the world title match.
Nice. Well, let's jump over to New Japan of America. We had this week's New Japan Strong taping, Nemesis Night 3. This is from Saturday, January 22nd. And we start off the show with a singles match between Royce Isaacs. He defeated Lucas Riley. We've seen Lucas Riley previously on the last tour. He had a singles match with Jonah that I thought was pretty good. And I thought he had a good showing of himself here against Royce Isaacs as well. Kind of playing that plucky underdog babyface role. Unfortunately, he was not enough to overcome the force that is Royce Isaacs and succumbed to him at 7 minutes, 24 seconds.
Yeah, good opener here. I'm glad we got to see a little bit more of what Lucas Riley can do, because in that Jonah match, he got absolutely squashed, didn't get much offense in. So saw him here, smaller guy, high flyer. He's doing, standing shooting star presses, a lot of kind of cool high flying, a lot of Hurricane Rana. So looks to have some good in-ring work, exciting high flyer. So glad to see some more of his offense. But also this was really all about, Team Filthy Royce Isaacs here and him picking up the big win.
It was okay. He didn't do a destroyer. If you're going to be a high flyer, you got to do a destroyer nowadays.
Yeah.
You don't do a destroyer,
Maybe he was planning to, but Royce cut him off before he got the chance.
I think so. Royce Isaacs, that's a guy I really like. But one thing that always throws me off is those fucking boots with the tassels.
Yeah.
Like he's like fucking Shane Douglas in ECW. He looks like those boots should only be worn by someone who's gonna like come off the top and do some crazy shit,
Right. Like if he's teaming with the Young Bucks.
Yeah. If you team with the they don't wear tassels anymore at all.
Right.
So, without the tassels. Second match of the night, we had Juice Robinson. He defeated the debuting for New Japan Bad Dude Tito, California mainstay, guy that's gotten a lot of notoriety recently from his recent work on Josh Barnett's Bloodsports. And they went out there and I thought they had a really, really good singles match. This was probably one of the better Juice outings in quite a while. He seemed really motivated. Bad Dude Tito obviously was looking to make a really good first impression. Juice did a lot of favors for him, trying to get him over. And, for a sub 10-minute match, I thought they had a hell of a match, honestly.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this match. This is my first time seeing Bad Dude Tito. I know he's done a lot of the Bloodsport stuff. I don't think he was on the Bloodsport show that was here in Tampa Mania weekend. This is the first time I've seen him in a matchup, and it's just a regular Pro Wrestling Rules match, and I thought he was awesome. To me, he kind of gave off some Scott Norton vibes with his look and his singlet. And this was a nice, hard-hitting, snug match. These guys were laying in the chops, laying in the forearms. Bad Dude Tito was throwing Juice all over the place, and like you mentioned, Juice fired up that Hollywood, California crowd. They were all behind Juice, and it really, into his offense and getting behind him when he was trying to come from underneath and, get some comeuppance on Bad Dude Tito. So good back and forth stuff here. Juice winning the match. Well, first of all, to set up his new finish, he did a elevated pulp friction where he kind of hung Bad Dude Tito on the ropes, kind of a like Tower of London like maneuver. That was pretty scary. Like that could have gone wrong, but it came off really nice looking. And then
it looked great, but the scary thing about it was like he had him draped, like you mentioned, over the top rope, and I thought that he was gonna like pull him out, but he didn't pull him out. He planted him straight down, and I was like, oh god, that looks incredible, but also there's a very slight margin for error there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was a little worried, but yeah, he pulled it off, and then he has his new finisher, the HHB, which looks similar to like a key crusher that Loki used to do back in the day, kind of pick him up in a fisherman position, suplex, and then spin him out in kind of a driver-like position.
Yeah, I wasn't totally sure on that whole thing. I didn't know that was officially his new finisher. If it is, I like it a lot. I thought it was a cool move and a great match. Post-match, Juice gets on the mic, calls out Jonah, wants to fight him. Jonah comes to the ring, and, they look like they're going to come to blows. Suddenly, Juice Robinson, the stupid babyface, forgets that Bad Dude Tito's still in the ring. Bad Dude Tito grabs his foot. He gets jumped by both, Jonah and Bad Dude Tito. They're both going to the top rope saying that they're going to kill this guy. Literally, they're like, let's kill him.
Yeah, that's literally what John said.
But then, Juice Robinson's partner, Dave Finlay, makes the save, comes out, helps him avoid death, and looks like we might be getting, well, definitely we're going to be at some point getting a Juice Jonah match, but it looks like we might even be getting potentially a tag team match between these four.
Well, the tag match is already announced for the Rivals taping that's happening next month in February, also in Hollywood. Yeah,
that will probably be pretty good, so looking forward to that. And then the main event, we had tag team action as Team Filthy, Fred Rosser. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Team Filthy, Jarrell Nelson and Tom Lawler. They teamed up with Black Tiger, and they were defeated by the team of Fred Rosser, Rocky Romero, and Taylor Rust. And, the interesting thing here, obviously, they're building to the big strong openweight title match between Taylor Rust and Tom Lawler. And there's the ongoing feud between Black Tiger and Rocky Romero, some sort of specter from his past. But there's a lot of dissension within the Hantai group, because Taylor Rust is a former member of Team Filthy, and he was kind of ousted from Team Filthy when he was ousted from the promotion and had to go down to Florida for a cup of coffee. And New Japan doesn't kind of forget those sorts of things. So when they brought him back as a babyface, Fred Rosser and Rocky Romero are very wary of the guy, and very, kind of wondering, can we trust him? Can they coexist? But that is really the story of the match. And even post-match, even though they won, Fred Rosser and Rocky Romero were really kind of laying into Taylor Rust because they don't know if the guy's trustworthy or not. They don't know what his intentions or motivations are. He's not one of them, figuratively and literally. So.
Right, and then also post-match there was Rocky and Black Tiger were kind of having a little pull apart brawl. So at some point we're gonna get the Rocky Romero and Black Tiger singles match, and I thought it was a really good matchup here. I think the one problem, so like you mentioned, the whole story of the match was Rocky and Ross are not trusting Taylor Rust and Ascension there, not really wanting to tag him in. I thought that was a great story, and it works out with the whole thing of Taylor Rust coming back, but I think it kind of hurt him as a babyface just because, at least with that crowd, because he's coming back here, and you can tell like he was almost like the least known out of the whole match, and he didn't really get a huge pop when he came out. Fans are really into Rocky and Rosser, and so going in, the number one challenger for Filthy Tom, supposed to be like this hot babyface, I feel like it kind of cooled him off because the top babyfaces weren't really digging him or letting him in on the match.
Yeah, there's a match, the 1992 War Games, where Sting's Squadron, they're teamed up with Nikolai Volkov and Nikita Koloff. And there's a lot of questions about Nikita's allegiance to WCW and to Team Sting. And then they do the famous spot where Sting's gonna get I don't know, gaffed with some fucking whatever, some gimmick, and he pushes Sting out of the way and he takes the fucking brunt of the attack, right? And then later on in the match, him and Sting look at each other and they hug, and the whole crowd goes crazy because there's no question who whether or not he's allegiant to the team, and they kind of help get Nikita over in that moment and get the fans on his side. I do think I agree with you. There should have been some moment in the booking where, like, if they were going to be wary of him, where it becomes very known, like, oh no, this dude is one of us. He's come over to the good side, and we're going to put our stamp of approval on him. Whether it be something like what I just described, where, he steps in the line of fire for Fred Rosser, or at the end of the match, they shake hands and pay respect to him, because he showed the goods or whatever. But they didn't do that. They kind of kept the tensions going, which, maybe there is some sort of storyline reason, but it doesn't seem to be benefiting him in his, trajectory to be like a top challenger for Tom Lawler. I don't think that there's a lot of heat or buzz behind the title challenge.
Yeah, and this is like ending up being one of like the weakest title challenges. It's like it pretty much is like a dead set. Like we know like Tom is winning. Like I don't see Taylor Rust. I don't think it would make a ton of sense. Like he's not over. The fans are not really into him, and just yet, he's just coming back, and so I think it's going to be an easy, defense here for Filthy Tom.
Well, that's going to do it. Very good episode of New Japan Strong. Next week is the final night of New Japan Strong Nemesis, night 4. And this is going to air Saturday, January 29th. On that show, we've got 3 matches. We have Alex Zane taking on Arya Daivari, Alex Coughlin in his final match before his graduation from Young Lion status against JR Kratos. This one's been brewing for a long time, so that should be very, very good. There's a big story behind that. And then the main event is the USFJ Open Challenge, as Jay White will be facing the young and up-and-comer Christopher Daniels.
Yeah, should be a fun episode here. Difference is also 2 big matches, the semi-main and main event. I'm curious to see if Coughlin's going to, continue to come out with the Young Lion gear and music, or just need to beat Kratos to graduate here. So that should be a fun matchup. Their interactions in the multi-mans that they've had recently have been really good, and JR's that one last, monkey on his back that he really needs to get off before he can really kind of break out of, the Young Lion ship that he's in right now. And then Jay White, we've seen he's doing the US of J Open Challenge, opening the forbidden door for people to come in. So interesting pick here. The Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels coming in here to tangle with Jay White, and I always a big fan of the Fallen Angel. And it seems like he's kind of on like a retirement kind of tour. He's did some shots on Impact. He's doing some indie dates. Seems like he's trying to gear up and do one last big year in wrestling. So looking forward to see how this match turns out.
Nice. Well, let's turn our attention to what's becoming a weekly staple on this show, Lions Roar. When we spoke last week, I had seen episodes 1 and 2. You had only seen episode 1. In hindsight, I realized I probably should just covered episode 2, even though you hadn't seen it. But whatever. Episode 3 came out this past week. I watched that today. Are you up to date, Jeremy?
Yes, I have seen episode 2 and 3.
All right, cool. So, we can talk about that. And, one thing I noticed already with episode 3 is they now have like a title intro that they didn't have for the first 2 episodes. And some of the things I complained about last week were like the explanation of what the show is. They still haven't quite fully explained exactly what all this is going to be, but they kind of quasi did that in that intro where they said like 13 wrestlers, in one house. So, I guess that's the deal. There's 13 wrestlers, and it feels like episode to episode, they're kind of picking one guy to sort of highlight during the course of that episode. So you kind of get a little bit more insight into who they are and what their struggles and their background are and everything like that. But the show is really great, man.
Yeah, I've really been enjoying it. And like you mentioned last week, episode 2, that kind of spotlight focus on Michael Richards, one of the head young lion from the Fale Dojo who competed in the 2019 Young Lions Cup, and kind of, this is a big redemption story for him because, he came in with that Young Lions Cup, but he mentioned, he's supposed to be on the same level as the LA Dojo guys, Fredericks, Connors, and Coughlin, were also in that tournament. And his performances weren't great. He talked about how he was out of shape, and after one of the matches, Rocky came up to him and was like, I don't think you belong here. And I remember us kind of being pretty hard on Richard's performance during that Young Lions Cup. I mean, you had Fredericks and Connor and Coughlin and Narita and Umino all in there killing it, and then he comes in and like he said, he just wasn't in the best shape and wasn't on those guys' level. So it's a real kind of redemption story here. Just talked about coming back to train and how he let Fale down, let himself down, and he's going to keep training until he can get another shot to go back to Japan. So it just really made you care for Richards and kind of want to get behind him. And the day that he finally comes back, I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that was really kind of interesting and compelling to see how they peeled the curtain back and sort of revealed those kind of aspects. So that was pretty awesome in that second episode. Most recently in the episode that came out this week, so episode 3, we saw a few different things. We're seeing some of the training regimens that these guys are going through, some of the expectations, the culture that's being taught to them, the manners, all that sort of stuff. And they got a shipment in of like the tracksuits, but these are specially designed tracksuits with a special, New Zealand dojo stitching put into them. And they handed those out to all the trainees. It looks like they kind of have their core group now. And, one of the things that, Bad Luck Fale sort of emphasized is that there have been people, I guess, who've been in their camps that leave in the middle of the night, and he was like, if you wear this, you can't leave with it. If you leave this camp, you leave that here. And if you take it, we will come find you and we will take it back from you. And he's like, that's the one thing. He's like, if you're going to have respect for this camp, if you want to keep these, you have to go through the entirety of the 3 weeks or however long it is this course is that they're doing, the camp. And he was like, but if you leave, you don't take that with you. and I was like, oh, that's pretty kind of interesting, to kind of build a sense of like team unity and presentation and respect and everything like that.
Yeah, that was definitely a kind of cool moment there. And yeah, Fale has been really great on the show, and just like some of the comments that he's making, and then just seeing him as a coach, the one point where they're practicing like pummeling and inside control, and he's like, if I can get it, I'm gonna throw you. And then he's walking around in a circle and pummeling with the guys, and then some guys, they let themselves open, and he just tossed them across and just like moved on to the next guy.
The other thing too that was interesting with this episode is as time has gone on, I mean, they established that like the building that they're in now is not the original Fale Dojo. In fact, I remember when he started the Fale Dojo, it was literally at the genesis of this podcast. That's like 4 years ago. And you got to wonder to yourself, man, they've been around for 4 years. I feel like the only two guys we really kind of seen come out of that dojo was like Aaron Solo and Michael Richards. You know what I mean?
Right.
We haven't, and you got to wonder yourself, like, who are they training? What are they doing? We don't hear much about this dojo. And as time has gone on with the show, they've kind of revealed they've subtly like revealed some of that history, and we're starting to see different guys that are alumni who were training with them and maybe are abroad because of COVID, and they're starting to come back. And there was one gentleman who had been sort of like a graduator out of their school and went to Japan, and after literally just a week had to like drop out of the Noge Dojo system because it was too hard for him. And they did a special profile on him this week as well. I forget the guy's name.
Yeah,
I think
it was Jake Taylor or something like that was his name, I think.
It was something like
something
that.
Like that.
He talked about how like he lost his girlfriend and his like relationship to wrestling, and then wasn't able to like hack it in the Noge Dojo, and he's trying to go back now.
Right, like he had like an Achilles injury, and like anytime he pointed to the injury, the Noge Dojo guys were like, "Get out! Like if you're gonna show weakness, like get out this dojo."
Bro, I feel like they'd crack me real quick.
Yeah, dude, I'm watching all this stuff and I'm like, bro, there is absolutely no way. Like even like in like probably my peak like amateur wrestling like condition, like our amateur wrestling was pretty tough, but like I don't know if I could handle like some of the stuff that they were doing.
Yeah, it's really it helps you to really gain a sense of respect for what they're doing and what the guys that perform in New Japan, the ones that have gone through the dojo system even, gives you a bit more insight and respect into the craft, into what it takes to get to where they're at. And I think that's something that's sort of lacking. A lot of fans, we live in a time and a culture where everyone's got a voice online and they like to shit on everybody. And, they have no idea what someone like Bad Luck Fale or someone like, Master Wato or whoever, what they've really gone through to earn their spot and to get to where they are and still have to do to continue to stay on. And it's really eye-opening. So, I do want them to tighten up episodes a little bit more. It seems a little bit, each episode, I mean, the production's incredible.
Yeah.
It's really, and it's every week it gets better, but the narrative is still kind of lacking. I don't like, it's a lot of footage kind of compiled together, which is great, but I'm still wondering what the narrative and the overall story is going to be. But I'm enjoying watching it play out, and I really like the show, and I think the show's important. And if you're not seeing it, you need to watch it. It's an easy watch. It's like 20 minutes per episode.
Yeah, 24 minutes. I watched this week's on the elliptical at the gym. Really easy watch. And like you mentioned, like we mentioned last week, like this helps you know these guys and get like the background and be more invested. And sure, like not probably all these guys are probably not going to make it to Noge Dojo, and out of that percentage, probably not all of them are going to make it to like the New Japan roster, but there are going to be some that will. And watching this, you're going to get that full story, and you'll be able to be more invested once they debut as young lions and start having matches.
I agree. So that's going to wrap that up. Let's jump into the news here. A few news items. So we already covered this, but Kosei Fujita, he sustained a shoulder injury in training. He's going to miss the first half of the New Year's Golden Series, and there's also several shows canceled, so it looks like everyone is. In other news, Chase Owens has tested positive for COVID-19 this past week and has pulled out of his bookings. For the week, he's in the U.S. and his bookings were independent shots. Yuya Uemura, also based in the U.S., pulled out of his weekend's bookings as well due to being in close contact with Chase. Owens said that he felt horrible on 112 and 113, but was doing better on January 15th. So all the best wishes to those guys. Hope they feel better, obviously. Axis has debuted the New Japan Best of Show at 10 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. It debuted this past week after Impact on January 20th. The debut show was Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho from Wrestle Kingdom 12. The upcoming shows that they have, slated to be played in subsequent weeks. January 27th, they have Okada and Naito from Wrestle Kingdom 12. February 3rd is going to be Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi from the G1 Climax final. February 10th will be Tanahashi versus Jay White. February 17th is Jon Moxley versus Juice Robinson. February 24th is Ibushi versus Jay White in their G1 final. And then the up-to-date shows are going to start on March 3rd.
Yeah, so I did want to go ahead and watch the re-airing of Alpha vs. Omega this past week on Access TV. So like we said, it's the exact same show that aired on Access the first time, had Josh Barnett and Jim Ross on the commentary, and man, that matchup was just so great. It was just kind of great, just reliving, they played the video package beforehand, just kind of reliving that whole story and that big matchup. And yeah, that's pretty cool to just see the Access presentation once again, the quality of the footage and just everything that involved that production there. So I am looking forward to seeing what the new setup is going to look like come March 3rd. And the show, it got 88,000 viewers coming in from the Impact lead-in. So based off of the charts and the analytics, a lot of this comes from WrestleNomics. This is a pretty good number for New Japan on a Thursday night at 10 p.m. They do believe that when new content starts, this show could potentially overtake Impact and their ratings.
Well, historically speaking, when New Japan was on Access, at no point has Impact really compared to the numbers that New Japan was consistently doing on the same channel. It will be interesting to see how they compare with one another. One other interesting tidbit is the fact that even though Impact was the lead-in for New Japan, they actually had one of their highest viewerships. And I have to imagine maybe that has something to do with the fact that New Japan was on afterwards. You know what I mean?
Right. People are kind of tuning in because they wanted to stick around to watch Alpha vs. Omega.
Right, because it's sort of like you have a block of programming. You watch your Impact, and then you can watch your New Japan afterwards, and it's like, why not? It would almost seem weird to only tune in for the New Japan when it's like, well, Impact's right there, and it's not
right.
It's not like a different wrestling program on a different channel that's running in that time slot where you have to switch over. It's on the same channel. So, I mean, if you're already going to be watching the one show, it's beneficial to watch the other one. And so it kind of makes sense. I think that's beneficial to both companies. But, you look at New Japan, and I mean, from what I understand, they beat them in the demo, right? New Japan beat Impact. Is that correct? Or came very close.
I think they came close.
But I mean, they were only running a rerun, and they're in a worse time slot on the night. So based on all the preliminary evidence, I wouldn't, and then also history, I wouldn't be surprised if they start doing much higher numbers than Impact does. And you got to wonder how Access is going to feel about that, whether that's positive or negative, since Anthem owns both, Impact as well as Access TV. So moving on, New Japan's thoughts and deepest sympathies are with all those affected by the disaster that struck Tonga this past week. If you guys didn't hear, there was an underwater volcano that exploded and erupted not far off the shoreline of Tonga, and it caused a bunch of tsunamis and stuff like that. So to help with it, there's a special Tongan Lion Mark T that's now available on Token Shop Global. All the profits of the sales of that are going to be donated to relief efforts in Tonga. So if you want to help, that's one cool way you could do it. Will Ospreay, he successfully defended the Warrior Wrestling Warrior Wrestling title against Brian Cage this past weekend. He did say he won't be at Warrior Wrestling in March because he has plans in Japan, but he does plan to bring friends with him the next time he comes to Warrior Wrestling. And I did see that match. You saw it as well. I thought that was one of the better excursion matches I've seen this year so far. I think I went like 4.25, and I heard a lot of really great reviews about it as well.
Yeah, really fun matchup there. I mean, Ospreay is just incredible, and Brian Cage is just a freak as well in the ring. And so, yeah, kind of a dream kind of matchup here. And, yeah, really good main event. I went 4.25. A lot of crazy spots. I definitely recommend, if you have access to this, to watch this matchup. And I did think, Ospreay's post-match comments were very interesting. Him talking about being busy in March in Japan, which is always the New Japan Cup, and so he was hinting at that. So that's kind of great news to think that we're going to get Ospreay in the New Japan Cup again, and then could be cool to see some United Empire influence on Warrior Wrestling shows going forward in the future.
Yeah, and if you follow that company, Casey Navarro has some sort of gimmick where he won something, so now he gets to name his title shot for any title. He came out at the end of the show and did a stare down with Will Ospreay. So it seems like when they do the next title match, it'll probably be Ospreay, Casey Navarro. So, that's another one to look out for later in the year. But, Brian Cage is a guy that's kind of been had a somewhat tumultuous relationship with AEW as of late. Seems like he's not being used there. And there's a whole slew of contracts that are getting ready to come up, as was revealed in the media recently. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe perhaps he's a guy that can make his way over to New Japan Strong. He's got the look and the style, and he, it's no secret, he's not a great promo. And in New Japan, you don't have to be. And I think he actually could be one of the few guys that really could be a great fit and excel, and probably fit better in New Japan than he did in, say, like AEW. I don't know what you think, Jeremy.
Yeah, I absolutely think that. And I think, anytime you see a unsigned guy wrestling a New Japan guy, I think it's a tryout. Whether it's an official tryout or not, the office is watching, and so it's all a chance to improve, catch some eyes, and potentially lead to something for New Japan in the future. So I definitely think that, New Japan office is going to be watching this match. I'm sure Ospreay is probably going to put in a good word. And, they're always looking for stars to bring in for Strong. They're trying to sell tickets. They're trying to, do some touring here. And then, honestly, once the boards open up back up, you want some fresh guys and then bring in to do some big matchups, get some fresh G1 lineup, some fresh New Japan Cup entrants. So, yeah, I think Brian Cage would be a great fit for the New Japan product, whether it's Strong or, in Japan itself. And like you mentioned, doesn't have to worry about cutting promos. They can build him as a monster, kind of like they're doing with Jonah right now, where he's going in there and just kind of smashing people. And I think just the way that the Strong TV works, I mean, you don't always see everybody every week, and it's kind of paced out. And so I think for him, that would be good too, because you can kind of build this mystique. He comes up, once or twice every 4 weeks, destroys somebody, and then you can slowly build him and then get him ready to, potentially be a strong challenger.
Yeah, I know not everybody's the biggest fan of Brian Cage, but I mean, for a guy as athletically gifted as he is and the physique and everything like that, there's very few guys his size that can do the things that he's able to do. And, I noticed he just seemed, like you mentioned, this is probably some sort of de facto trial, because this is the most motivated I've seen him look in several years. I mean, he's had some great matches in AEW. The ones that come to mind are like the Moxley and the Darby Allin matches, but I don't think that he was performing individually as well in those matches or any other one I could think of in AEW as he did here. And, partly he was wrestling Will Ospreay, who's, one of the best in the world, so that makes sense. But I thought let me put it this way. Will Ospreay, I've watched a few of his excursion matches recently, the three-way where he won this title in Warrior Wrestling, and then also the Shota Umino match. He was having to slow down and really wrestle down to the level of the talent that he was with. With Brian Cage, he didn't do that at all. In fact, it seemed like they both were kind of turning it up a bit. And for a 15-minute, fun little title match. They didn't go to that next gear that they both have. I still thought they had a great match. So I think if it was some sort of tryout, I can't imagine people seeing that with their eyes and not being impressed.
Right. And I do want to point out, we got a tweet a couple of days ago from one of our listeners, Mike Gamble at the Gambler23. Says, love you guys' show, but y'all got to put some respect on Warrior Wrestling. I live in Chicagoland, and Warrior is growing as one of the best indies in the Midwest. Look at the talent they've been bringing in lately.
Yeah, the Catholic school promotion is really, really cool. We like them. No, for real though, I like Warrior Wrestling. I think they've always done a pretty good job. I mean, he's right. I don't even think it's just look at the talent they brought in lately. I think it's look at the talent. They've only run like 18 shows, and every show they've had has been literally star-studded. In an era where there's not really a super indie, they're kind of the closest thing in the Midwest to like a super indie. They have more star-studded shows than say like AAW in the Midwest has, or other major indies that might be out that way. I mean, they've had Jay White, Will Ospreay, Minoru Suzuki, Timothy Thatcher, Lance Archer, Brian Cage, all sorts of. I mean, literally, like you name them. There's been a slew of top guys coming through that promotion. I don't know how. I don't know why. I wonder if they're like laundering money and like using this as a front or some shit like that. But they bring in top talent. That's true.
Well, I know a lot of it they do for like donations to different organizations. I forget which organization was getting the funds from this show. So I know that they're doing
quote unquote donations. like I said,
they're doing some good work, and yeah, it's very interesting the big names that they are bringing in. I mean, you got Will Ospreay as your promotions champion. Like that's pretty big. Like Ospreay is one of the best wrestlers in the world going today, and had an incredible 2021. He's on pace to have a great 2022. And so I think just having a guy like Ospreay, bringing your belt out in the Tokyo Dome, I think that really kind of adds some credibility. It really elevates the profile of Warrior Wrestling. So I think they're doing good stuff. Anytime I've seen matches from their shows, have always been pretty good. The one thing that I was not a really fan of from this show was just the commentary. I don't know if you had any thoughts about it.
I've heard Warrior Wrestling have worse commentary, like for real. So I thought this was okay. It's an indie show,
Yeah. Yep. But yeah, I guess whatever. But yeah. But overall, yeah, great match, and yeah, everything else looked good on the show. So yeah, Warrior Wrestling's definitely a promotion to keep your eye out, and they're always bringing in fresh talent. I mean, the free agency is getting flooded right now with tons of talented guys. So who knows who they'll bring in next?
Not Kaylee Ray.
I think
what's her name?
You're talking about Smiley Kylie Ray?
Yeah, not Kylie Ray.
She was on this show.
Oh, was she?
Yeah.
Oh, she fucking no-showed them before, so I was like, oh, they're not bringing her back. Never mind. Last bit of news. So Impact, this past week, they had a set of tapings, Jay White, GOD, they were on those tapings. And through the course of, the 2-episode arc, or however many episodes those 2 nights were taped, we've kind of arrived at 2 matches at No Surrender involving New Japan stars. So it was revealed that GOD is going to be facing off in a tag team match with the Good Brothers. This has kind of been going on as far back as Resurgence. So we're sort of seeing that play out here at No Surrender. Kind of interesting because it felt like the Good Brothers were going to be maybe a staple or a part of New Japan Strong, or just New Japan proper going forward. And kind of feels like maybe for the time being that's not the case, because this match is happening over, or maybe it's a make good for Impact, and just like a charity thing. I don't know, but yeah, we're getting GOD versus the Good Brothers at No Surrender, and then there's a singles match established between Jay White and Eric Young at No Surrender as well. And I think what group is Eric Young a part of?
Violent by Design.
Right.
Joe Doring, and I forget who else is in that group, but I know those are the 2 top guys in the group.
Yeah, so there was a conflict and multi-man match and angle and shit like that during the, during the taping. So between the Bullet Club and between Violent by Design. So it kind of was leading to the singles match between Jay White and Eric Young. One interesting thing about those tapings, by all the reports that we've heard, Bullet Club came out as complete total baby faces and worked the entire taping as, white hot baby faces taking on heels. So for the time being, at least in this role, it seems like the Bullet Club are a babyface faction in Impact. I don't know.
Yeah, that seems like that might be the case. And yeah, you brought up, GOD Good Brothers. We saw the angle that was shot for them at Resurgence in August. Like you mentioned, it does seem like, Good Brothers was going to be a part of New Japan in America because they won the Tag Team Turbulence tournament, and they had the angle at Resurgence. They had the tag match against Mox and Nagata. Then it just kind of disappeared after that, and then they were also off of AEW TV with that whole relationship kind of ending. So, yeah, finally getting them back around to this GOD Good Brothers. It did seem to be interest at the time when they shot the angle in August. So we'll see if this kind of jumps up any more interest from New Japan fans. And then Jay White versus Eric Young should be a pretty good matchup as well. Yeah, I'm curious to see kind of what the future is with Bullet Club, especially, you have House of Torture kind of running rampant in New Japan, even though, at this point they're not really Bullet Club, but they still have the logo. Then you gotta have guys that are kind of in the middle ground right now, of like ELP and Taichi and Gato and Jado, and all those guys are kind of in the middle. And then over here in America, you have God and Jay kind of doing their thing, Chris Bay, and Hikuleo. So I'm wondering if we're getting closer to that Bullet Club split.
Possibly. I mean, and again, I think that it's just going to fizzle out,
right,
and never be addressed. But we'll see what happens. That's going to do it for the news, and it's time to jump into questions.
Yep. So lots of questions here. First from the Discord, Taylor Made. Yes. Remember when Jay White and Kenny Omega stood face to face 6 months ago?
The young boy has no memory of that.
I do, and yeah, it did seem at the time like that was going to be a hot angle, like they were going to do a match. Kenny was going to defend one of his titles against Jay White, but yeah, never really followed up on that.
Yeah, I don't have much more to add to it. That's what happened.
Yeah. Next question here comes from a friend of the show, Nick Kelly. We're in a New Japan Facebook Messenger group with Nick, and all this great conversation with him, and he asked, what do you think the ceiling is for each of the young lions? Could you also do the first LA class, since aside from Fredericks, they've all graduated quite recently?
Interesting question. I mean, it'd be tough there's so many lions out there now. It would be hard to go through each and every single one of them. And, I don't know if I can put a ceiling on any individual person, because you just never know when someone's in their young lion phase and then their excursion, what that may or may not turn into,
Right.
There's so many guys that, like, it seemed like they were going to go on to do amazing things, and then they didn't. And then there's other guys that, like, maybe didn't have the best excursions and maybe didn't have the best lion days and all that, and then become top mainstay players with the company. So it's one of those things. I mean, you just really don't know. But with that being said, it feels like the probably two guys that are out there that the company is probably positioning and pooling to be megastars are probably Shota Umino and Yuya Uemura, who are both on excursion currently.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, those guys have been doing some great work, and with Umino in Rev Pro, he's doing, kind of doing the Death Rider gimmick and being shooter, and he's got the white gear. They've done a great job of his presentation, his music, and he's been, positioned very high in Rev Pro, getting a lot of Rev Pro title matches. Just recently had a title match with Will Ospreay a couple of months ago, so he's definitely been protected and pushed in Rev Pro. And then you look at Uemura, and he comes in Resurgence, his first match in Excursion, gets the pinfall He's been having a lot of good matches on Strong. He's been doing a bunch of indies since he's been here in the States as well. So those are definitely two guys that are kind of protecting and pushing. And to me, yeah, they both kind of come off with that aura. And I feel like there are two guys that, if things go well for them, they could potentially come in and be aces and be champions. I mean, I think they still have some work to do. Umino, he's in there for Ospreay, and it was clear that Ospreay was just a level ahead of him and kind of carrying him a little bit. And so Umino still has a next gear to get to really be that New Japan main eventer and to be that IWGP champ they're looking for. But I definitely think Umino and Umura are the guys out there with the strongest potential. Looking at the recent LA Dojo guys that are graduating or coming up, you got Fredericks, Connors, Coughlin, Gabe Kidd. All four of those guys are great. Initially it did seem like Carl Fredericks was he was a captain. He was the kind of guy that they were pushing. He was going to be in that New Japan Cup, and it seems like he's kind of the guy, if anybody, to kind of be the quote-unquote, top main event guy out of that group. But all the rest of those guys have really caught up with him, especially Coughlin in the last several months with the challenge series he's been doing. Like you mentioned, it's kind of hard to put a ceiling on any of those guys, because I can say, maybe they won't, but you never know, especially when they actually get to Japan. It's going to be interesting to kind of watch all their trajectories and see where they're kind of going. For Clark Connors, he is kind of small, so he might just be in the junior division at first. So maybe you could put a ceiling on him and saying he's probably the junior champion. But based on what they're doing on Strong, who knows? Maybe he can end up becoming a heavyweight. Gabe Kidd, very great technical wrestler. He can kind of follow the Zack Sabre playbook and be a guy that's used in the heavyweight division in that kind of sense there.
Yeah, the one thing I've noticed, obviously Gabe Kidd had quite a bit more wrestling experience already on the UK indie scene than, say, perhaps the experience that like Fredericks, Connors, and Coughlin had when they came into the dojo. Like, he was already a pretty established veteran by the time he got to the dojo. And so, they did give him a lot of new training, and he definitely came in as a line and everything like that. But I think that he probably needed less seasoning than those guys. He had quite a bit more experience. And already coming out of his graduation, he just kind of feels more complete as a performer than any of those other guys do right now.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
There's not much that he's doing different. I mean, it's not like he has really flashy gear. It's not like he has a gimmick, but he just feels like a more complete performer, kind of more ready for the main stage, like a finished product. That's the one thing. Like, I think Coughlin, Fredericks, and Connors are fantastic. I love those guys, and I'm especially becoming a really big fan of Coughlin. But they don't feel finished to me, even though they've graduated. There seems to be something missing. I don't know. I don't want to speculate and say what it is, but they need a little bit of something, and I don't know if that will shift when they get to Japan. But it's kind of a whole new experiment. The whole LA dojo thing. We've never seen them implement guys from a dojo outside into New Japan proper. So what that will even be, what it will look like, what the ceiling is for them, we don't know, because we've never experienced that just quite yet. And I am very interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah. And real quick, Ren Narita, just touch on him a little bit. I mean, we from day one, we've been on the Narita bandwagon, and I feel like he can kind of be a quote-unquote kind of dark ace. So, they're kind of pushing Umino and Umura hard. Narita can kind of be that third guy that comes in there who maybe he's not supposed to be the flagship kind of guy, but with his intensity in wrestling kind of fights his way up to the top. And he's kind of one of those kind of dark ace underdog guys that gets up top.
Well, I kind of feel that way. I was going to mention, and you bring up a great point, I feel that way about him and Tsuji. I think that we've got two tandems of different generations of lions that are out on excursion simultaneously. Obviously, so like you've got, like you mentioned, Narita in LA, and then you've got Shooter Umino over in England. And those are kind of like two sides of a different coin. You know what I mean?
Right.
And then you sort of have a mirror of that between Tsuji and Imura, with Tsuji kind of being the Narita over in England, and then Uemura kind of being the shooter, except he's in LA. And I think there's definitely a similarity there between Narita and Tsuji and how the company sees them and their physicality, their styles of wrestling, and what they may be when they come back, sort of like a Dark Ace, like you mentioned, versus the more conventional, appealing type of guys that New Japan really goes for in terms of look, in terms of height, size, and style wrestling, with like Shooter and freaking Uemura.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really interesting to see how it plays out with all these guys. I mean, and the big thing is there's a whole generation of New Japan wrestlers that are on their way out. It's no secret in the next 5 years. I mean, we're going to start to see them wind down Hanma, Suzuki, Nagata, Kojima, Makabe, whole bunch, Gato, Jado, Tiger Mask. There's so many older stars that are going to be kind of cycled out, and they're going to need to start turning to those younger stars, and that's going to create a power vacuum. And yeah, there are a lot of free agents out there, but there's also a lot of lions in this system. So, I wish I could tell you who I think is going to be a world champion and who's never going to make it. I can't say that because I don't want to be like Coughlin's never going to be an IWGP. I don't know.
Right. I mean, all those guys are great wrestlers. It really all depends on the push, because will they get over in Japan, and it's kind of the stories that Gail's going to tell with them.
Right.
So moving on to the next question here, Reddit user Less Commission 7252 says, other than the House of Torture, which NJPW wrestler or wrestlers currently in Japan is most underwhelming to watch? I believe it is Bushi because of how unutilized he has been for years.
So I would say Yujiro, but then he's House of Torture. But, I feel like he's grandfathered into Bullet Club, and I can just give him as the answer because he was already, even without the like bullshit, underwhelming.
Yeah.
Honestly, the right answer, though, is probably, I don't know, Bad Luck Fale.
Yeah, or Gato, Jado.
Or Gato or Jado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I know he said Bushi. I don't think I would say Bushi. Honestly, I think Bushi is very good in his role. Like, he's not doing anything more or anything less. Like, he's the kind of the mid guy in LIJ. Like, people love him. He has a mask. He looks cool when he comes out. Does his little, suicide dive, his little Rana, his Busharuni, does his thing, and he gets out of there. Like, Bushi's not supposed to be some kind of, top, junior ace. He's just, the utility guy. Goes out there, has his, good little 3.5 star matches, and then gets out of there.
Yeah, and if you need him to jump in and have a 4-star title match, he can do it when called upon. So, yeah, he's a utility guy. I agree. I mean, I don't know. Most of the guys that are underwhelming are either going to be very old, or they're going to be like a Bullet Club / House of Torture guy.
Yeah.
That's my feeling on it anyways.
His other question, if you can pick any current wrestler to join a faction in New Japan, who would it be? Jonah Rock would make a great addition to United Empire, since their unit is, in my opinion, the strongest unit, with most of them being foreigners.
So I'm assuming he's meaning that we could choose anybody to join any promote or any faction.
Yeah.
But, it's interesting that he chose someone that's currently unaffiliated. And I'm wondering if that means that's what he was aiming for us and forgot to mention it. But, I mean, I guess you could move someone from one faction to another if you really wanted to, I suppose.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm never good at these questions. I mean, is there someone that you think like really just needs a change of scenery and would thrive better in a different group? I don't know.
I'm trying to think. Like, with his answer for Jonah Rock, I don't know if I would put Jonah in United Empire because they have Jeff Cobb already, and they would kind of.
I agree with that.
They would kind of fit in the
that was
same
my
role.
first thought. They would just be. I mean, you'd have two giant muscle hosses in the same group, and unless they like were tagging together, that would just feel like overkill.
Yeah. Trying to think. There's not really anybody that's coming to my mind that really I think would be. I mean, maybe Dirty Daddy Chris Dickinson can join Suzuki-gun.
Maybe they don't have any foreigners though.
Yeah. They used to. Well, yeah. Archer. He's still a member.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, I guess they had Davey Boy and they had Shelton and they had, Archer. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, I think he could fit in with them for sure. And I mean, considering his history with Suzuki, that's not a bad pick. I don't know. Part of me is wondering if Watto needs to like join some other faction to like shake things off. I don't know.
Yo, I felt like they should have switched Yo after Show turned on him. I thought him like joining like LIJ or something would have been like a fresh thing for him to really revitalize him and going in this feud.
Just Yo's not going to happen. Let's stop trying to make Yo happen. Okay, we can move on. Next question.
So next question from user Jim San 11. What needs to change for New Japan to enter a promising new era, and what is the angle to kick it off?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think the biggest thing is just the COVID restrictions.
Right. I mean, if we didn't have COVID right now, like imagine all the great stuff that would be happening. I know you joked earlier about, missing out on, great wrestling because of COVID, but it's true. Like we saw what was happening right before COVID happened, the title programs they were setting up and the feuds that were happening. And so now, once the restrictions are lifted, you have all these young lions that are graduating and are excursion that can come in. You have a roster of strong guys that are ready to come in. You have the Forbidden Door open. You have AEW guys that can come in. You have people being released left and right from WWE that could come in and be good in New Japan. So, yeah, it's COVID. There's so many things that could happen once the restrictions are lifted.
Yeah. As far as the angle to kick it off, I mean, I don't know. Does it feel like, Tanahashi and Okada was the angle that kind of kicked off like an 8-year story arc, for New Japan and kind of got them back to being hot, possibly. But I mean, it's not like anybody other than Gato knew that at the time,
Right.
I assume once you're moving into a new era, the thing that's going to get it over is fresh young stars, building fresh young stars, which is what they did with Okada and various others at that time. So, I mean, that's kind of what's needed is, I don't know if that means bringing in, someone from the outside to kind of kick things off and get over and do business, or if it's going to be one of these guys in excursion. And, I feel like it, whatever it is right now, the guy that's carrying the company is Okada, and he's the flagship and has been for some time. So whatever it's going to be, it's probably going to involve him.
Yeah. So yeah, be interesting to see what happens there. Next question from user The Dark Soldier says, we're celebrating the 1-month anniversary of World Tag League 2021. If the G in G1 stands for Goto and the B in Best of Super Junior stands for Doki, does the W in World Tag League stand for waste of time?
I mean, Yoshihashi has a tag team title around his waist. And that's something I thought I'd never, ever, ever see. So I don't know how much of a waste of time World Tag League really was if it was used as a vehicle to get over Yoshihashi. And it worked.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's no G1, but I don't know. World Tag League, I think, can be a fun tournament, and it does kind of help some of the guys like Goto and Yoshihashi get over, and Dangerous Techers and GOD, and gives them something to do. Next question from Reddit user Hawaiian Punch BV. With WWE renaming one of their stars as a Nazi U-boat commander, it reminded me of when they tried to name a certain former young lion as Emperor Hirohito. What if Kendo Suzuki didn't leave New Japan and stayed? How would his career have played out? They seemed high on him. They had him win the Young Lion Cup over future stars in Tanahashi, Makabe, and Shibata.
Yeah, it's hard to know It's one of those hypothetical what ifs. Do I think that he would have had a good career? Possibly. But it's like we said earlier, there's some guys. He's a prime example of what I was mentioning during the Young Lion question earlier, is like, what's the ceiling? I have no clue what's going to happen with these guys. Yeah, Kenzo Suzuki seemed earmarked to be like the top prospect of a generation of young lions, and it was so much so that he went to North America, wrestled for WWE, and then kind of went off into obscurity. I mean, I think he still worked some other Japanese companies afterwards, but I without looking at Wikipedia, I don't know what became of Kenzo Suzuki. So do I think it probably would have ultimately benefited him more to work for New Japan during that time period than, say, WWE? Yeah, probably, because look at where Shibata, Makabe, Tanahashi, and all those guys are now. So,
right. Like, even if he didn't win the IWGP title, I think he could have been a top guy, and been in feuds with all those guys if they were coming up. Like, he could have been in that mix.
Yeah, definitely. Tanahashi almost took that role.
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah,
which is crazy.
His next question: what do you think of Ngannou's no knees D1 performance? It's nice to see Usman becoming a KO threat and Ngannou becoming an imposing wrestler ever since they started hanging out. I hope he gets his ass whipping from Tyson Fury for a lot of money. Do you still see Gon becoming a future champion when he works on his grappling some more?
Yeah. I don't know how legitimate the whole thing is with Ngannou's knees, with MCL tears and all that stuff. Maybe it's valid, maybe it's not. Things have been very precarious between the UFC and Ngannou and his team and their camp. And I mean, so much so that Dana White left. He left the building during his fight and didn't present him with the belt, didn't go to the press conference, wasn't part of it at all. So, very interesting stuff there. I was shocked that Ngannou took him down so many times. I mean, I was flabbergasted. The whole fight was just perplexing to me in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, if Ngannou can continue to utilize wrestling in his game, I mean, that makes him even scarier. The biggest thing though is he didn't do anything, and when I say anything, I mean literally, he didn't do shit on the ground. It's like he's a creative fighter, and they taught him the takedown move, but they didn't teach him elbows or punches on the ground.
Right.
So once he got him down there, he didn't know what to do, which is so bizarre.
Yeah,
but
I mean, he was trying to get some mounts, but yeah, he wasn't really doing anything besides that. He didn't look for any submissions really, or he tried to throw some strikes, but he wasn't really getting the full mount and doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of times he could have got a head arm triangle choke. He was in perfect position. He needed to pass the half guard, but I don't think he knew how to.
Right.
Who knows? He probably doesn't know how to do a head arm choke, which is crazy. But yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I wouldn't hold my breath about him and Tyson Fury fighting. It's probably not happening. In fact, I think that I read today that he had talks with Jake Paul's camp, and the UFC is threatening legal action. So
yeah,
who knows?
Dave said they actually sent him a letter. UFC sent him a letter the week leading up to the fight, during the training camp.
Okay, yeah. See, I haven't even listened to Observer or anything like that, so I don't know. As far as Gon becoming future, well, technically Gon is a champion. He is a interim heavyweight champion, which is recognized as a championship in the UFC. As far as becoming a future champion, yeah, I think, let's keep in mind, he only had 14 Muay Thai fights before this, and then basically 10 MMA fights. And he is a good grappler. Do I think there's some things he can work on? Yes. Do I think he's a finished product and a complete fighter? No. I was surprised that these guys didn't go after one another, really.
But I felt like Gon was very hesitant, he was afraid to get hit by Ngannou, and so
everybody should be.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, but I feel like his, I've seen some of the other fights, I feel like he was definitely more aggressive and tried some more things in some of those other fights, and here he's very cautious, very methodical, and kind of trying to pick his spots, but it just wasn't working for him.
Yep.
So last question here. Did you see the upset of Gary Russell Jr.? I thought he won the fight with one working shoulder, but I'm glad that his 6-year farce of a title reign is finally over. How do you think history will remember him or won't remember him?
Yeah, I didn't see this fight. In fact, you know what's funny? I didn't even know that Gary Russell Jr. fought this weekend. I didn't know he even lost his title. I don't know who beat him. I don't know what happened. I'll have to look into it. I like Gary Russell Jr. I think he's a very, very good fighter. I mean, he's super fast. And he's really balanced, great timing, very athletic. I think the biggest thing when he says farce of a title reign, he's probably talking about the level of competition and challengers he's had, which hasn't been stellar, but I mean, that's boxing. There's very few guys out there that are taking on all comers and, making the most appealing matches as champion. It just, that's how it is in boxing. As far as like history remembering him, I mean, I've never seen anything from Gary Russell that indicates to me that he's going to be remembered as like a legend or anything like that. I mean, he's a competent world champion, and hopefully with lightweight blowing up the way it has been the past few years, we start to see some of those other fights. Maybe we can get the Lomachenko rematch and Tiafimo and Kambosos and all those guys. So we'll wait and see. I don't even know who he lost to. I'll have to take a look at that, see what happened. It's weird. I usually at least keep up on. I don't know why I didn't even check the boxing results this past weekend. It's weird.
Before we move on to recommended match of the week, we did get some updates here for some new matches for the Strong taping February 17th, the Rivals show happening in the Vermont Hollywood. So we're finally getting the singles match with Rocky Romero, our good friend, taking on Black Tiger. We're going to have Yuya Uemura taking on Red Def Daniel Garcia. That should be a fun one. Kevin Blackwood taking on Arya Davari, and Kevin Knight taking on Hikuleo.
Yeah, some good ones there, especially that Daniel Garcia Uemura match. That's right up my alley.
So now let's move on to recommended match of the week. Last week, I recommended Hiroshi Hase versus Owen Hart from the Golden Series in 1988. It was in the top of the Super Junior tournament, one of the first tournaments of that lineage of the Super Junior tournaments.
Yeah, this was very, very interesting. I'm a big fan of Owen Hart. Like Hiroshi Hase a lot. And I mean, 1988, you're talking about, an up and coming Hiroshi Hase is kind of just making his mark. And Owen Hart, who's maybe, I wouldn't quite say his prime, but possibly. I mean, some of the best work of his career was being done around that time frame. And this match was really awesome. We, for the project during the initial onset of COVID, we did the Final Countdown series, and we reviewed the finals from this tournament, which was Hiroshi Hase and Shiro Koshinaka, which I think we liked quite a bit. But I gotta be honest, like, I like this match even better than those. I saw I think Dave gave this like 3.5. I think that's quite low for what this is. I'd probably go close to 4 stars. I think the fact that it's sub 15 minutes might keep me away from knocking it up to the full 4 mark. But what stood out to me about this match is if you were to ask me for the greatest Owen Hart match of his career, like a top 10 list, or same thing with Hiroshi Hase, probably not going to list this match. You know what I mean? It's not going to get listed on any list for like match of the year for 88 or anything like that. And we see this happen a lot of time, especially in Super Juniors tournaments, where there's a lot of really awesome, really cool, really great and entertaining matches that, because of time constraints and what have you, the tournament format, they just don't get remembered. They kind of go by the wayside. And I feel like that's what this match is. But when you actually watch it and you kind of unpack what it is, this is an awesome, awesome match. And I mean, it's just a grab bag of the best stuff that made 80s junior wrestling incredible. Very much in the same vein as like Tatsumi Fujinami's junior run back in the late 70s, early 80s. And I mean, you've got a lot of high flying, but it's not all flippy stuff. It's kind of combined with very real, very strong, very aggressive um, grappling and very fast paced grappling, very nasty, lots of hard strikes, a lot of fast paced running the ropes, coming off the top rope, and it didn't follow the conventional methods of a regular match layout where there's a long shine sequences and heat and all that. It kind of felt more like an exhibition, but with the volume turned up, where these guys were just going, spot, 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 spot. Which sometimes that's awesome, and
Yeah.
that's kind of what you got here.
Yeah, it kind of felt like back in the day when you have like an X Division match with like two baby faces, and so like there's not really a story, but they're just kind of going out there and high speed and it's kind of like you mentioned, kind of spot to spot and kind of really killing it.
Yeah, and when I say spot, I'm not talking about a spot in the sense of like the way some people think of it, like a flippy do move. A spot is literally just like a series of maneuvers or like a big move. That's what a spot is. And back in the old days, that's what a spot fest was. It wasn't just always guys flying around. But in this match, sure, there's some grappling, but it's not grappling the way that like a lot of the New Japan grappling at the time in the heavyweight division would be done, where they're sitting in the maneuver and they're selling it for a long time, and what some people call rest hold. I mean, there's very little of that here. This was just more of like a very intense, high octane, 13-minute junior match. And then Owen Hart really had a lot of really great near falls towards the tail end here. I sort of felt like maybe he was going to pick up the win. And then Hiroshi Hase, oh my God, there was one lariat that he hit Owen Hart with just prior to the end, and he looked like he fucking ended this, man.
Yeah, bro, that lariat was brutal.
Yeah, really brutal. And I mean, when we train lariats, oftentimes, you train it so that where you're positioned is that you're off their center line. So you're not squared up with them when you're running at them. You're running to where they're on the outside of you so you can reach your arm over and hit them. But Hiroshi Hase was squared up with this man where he was running straight at him and then just angled a high angle arm like at his neck. It was so gnarly. And Hase ended up picking up the win here, and I really enjoyed this match. I think it's a little bit of a hidden gem. So, that's kind of what the whole point of Recommended Match of the Week is. If you guys haven't seen it, it's on New Japan World. Big recommend, and it's no time at all. I really would highly recommend you check it out.
Nice. What is the recommended match for this week?
Well, I put it in the rundown. You're probably looking at it being like, what the fuck is this? But I wanted to stick with the Golden Series theme. So I'm putting in a really, really, really fun match. It's not a classic, but it's kind of very similar to the Hase Owen Hart match, where no one's going to confuse us for a match of the year, but this match just rocks, and it is awesome. It's from the Golden Series, January 8th, 1982. It's a 6-man tag, and we see the team of Antonio Inoki, Tatsumi Fujinami, and Tiger Mask, the original Tiger Mask, Satoru Sayama, as they take on the team of Abdullah the Butcher, Babyface, and Dynamite Kid. Any questions about what's going on here, Jeremy? Any background I can give you before we go?
Who is Babyface?
So Babyface is a luchador. Their partner at the time was, it wasn't CMLL. There was a different lucha outfit back then. What was the name of that company? Oh, it doesn't matter. IWA. God, it's gonna bother me so much when we get off the air that I didn't remember. Like literally, it's gonna. They had Fishman working for them and all those guys. Doesn't matter. Anyways. God. Okay. Anyways, so Babyface is a luchador from Mexico, and he's very. How do I describe Babyface? I mean, he doesn't wear a mask or anything like that. You know, he dresses in trunks, and he's sort of like a little bit stockier, heavy set luchador. He still can do the high flying and stuff like that, but he does a lot of brawling as well. Very much a of his time 80s luchador. And what's interesting about this match is you've got the ace of the company, the founder.
Was it UWA?
Yes, it's the UWA. God, thank you. That was gonna like fucking freak me out. I didn't remember the UWA. Inoki, obviously the ace of the company, and then you've got his protege Fujinami, who's just left his tenure as like the flagship junior of the company, and he's rising through the heavyweight ranks at the time. And then the new Smash sensation in the junior division, Tiger Mask. So you've kind of got the three top big stars in New Japan at the time taking on essentially what are three mega heel outsiders or foreigners. And Dynamite Kid and Tiger Mask are in the middle of their series of matches and their blood feud. And then you've got Abdul the Butcher, who's one of the top foreign gaijin heels in the entire country, and him and Inoki are feuding. And then Babyface is sort of like your utility lucha guy. And what's fun about this match is like everybody does something different. So you got Tiger Mask who can fly. You got Abdul the Butcher who like gets nasty with the fork on the outside and just does the brawling. You got Dynamite Kid and Fujinami who are both like technical marvels who do the hard hitting, fast paced classic wrestling style. Babyface, who's this luchador, who's doing the flips and the high flying, and then Inoki doesn't really have to get involved much in the match. He can literally just come in and fire up, and the whole crowd goes crazy. The match is only 13 minutes long, and it is 2 out of 3 falls. It's an Abdul the Butcher match, so there's some bullshit involved. But this is actually the match that convinced Inoki to never book Tiger Mask as a heavyweight, because he gets into it with Abby, and it gets massive heat. But this is the match that convinced him, like, oh shit, he's too small to wrestle to wrestle convincing heavyweights. But this is not available on New Japan World. I have provided Jeremy a link where it can be found. It's not that it used to be really easy to find this on the internet, but it's been taken down. But I provided Jeremy a link to the show. I don't know if he's gonna be able to provide it to you guys, but this is one of those ones where it's kind of a really infamous match, and if you like clusterfucks of a match, that's what this shit is, and it's really awesome.
Nice. Well, looking forward to checking that out. Should be interesting there. Yeah, we can tweet the link out. Maybe, hopefully, I don't know if you think it's a good call or not. I don't know if it'll get taken down if we.
That's the thing. I don't want it to get taken down. The guy that does this, he runs like an archive, and I think he owns all the footage, but I don't want him to get flagged. Yeah. So
here's the thing.
I think we can put it in the show notes, but I don't want to like tweet it out.
Right. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes, and then if you guys want to DM me privately, I'll share a link with you privately. Just don't post it anywhere.
Well, the thing with this link is like it's got like a bevy of 1982 New Japan matches on it. I think there's like 100 matches on this like little archive drive here. So you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
that's the thing.
Gotcha.
So,
all right. Yep, I'll put it in the show notes. Look for it, guys, in the description of the notes there to get the link for that matchup. And that's going to wrap things up for this week. I know you're probably wondering, what the heck are you guys going to talk about next week with the rest of January being canceled? Well, coming up at the end of this month is the 10-year anniversary of the Rainmaker Shock, where Okada comes back from excursion and takes the title from Hiroshi Tanahashi, kind of kicking off, like Josh mentioned earlier, this era of the last 8 years of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we're going to celebrate that. We'll talk about the Rainmaker Shock. We'll look at the first Young Lion match that Okada had, or I guess his last match with that he had with Tanahashi before leaving for excursion. We'll look at the Rainmaker Shock and some of the matches that happened that year in that rivalry. We'll probably bring in a guest for that as well, but it should be a fun episode to kind of look back and just kind of explore the beginning stages of the Okada-Tanahashi rivalry.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna queue up the show buckle to give me the inside scoop on this. That guy. I wish he still made videos, but I'm gonna uh, definitely check that out. Watch these matches. We'll do some deep dive research for you guys, and this is the most formative and important feud of the modern era of New Japan Pro Wrestling. So February 12th, I believe, is the anniversary for the Invasion Attack match where the Rainmaker Shock took place, and by the time this show airs, it will be just 11 days removed from that anniversary. So I think it's a very fitting and a opportune time for us to kind of go back, take a look at those matches, take a look at the coverage that was going on around that time, and then kind of take a look back and give our insights and sort of celebrate this incredible series of matches that these guys had. We don't have time to do all 15 matches, obviously, but I think we will take a look at probably like the first 3, maybe 4 matches between the Young Lion match leading all the way up to their Wrestle Kingdom 7 showdown, I believe.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. So looking forward to checking that out and just kind of reliving history and checking out the beginning phases of a feud that really kicked off a golden era in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we'll catch you next week on that. If you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure to stay connected with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. The network is at Social Suplex. I am at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/socialsuplex. On Instagram, we are at Social Suplex. Join us on Reddit. I am the pro black guy, just keeping it strong style. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Ford. Grave Consequences Podcast with Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. And the AEW Match Guide Podcast, hosted by Sir Sam. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we'll catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
That's all, bitches.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.